Well, guys, we got a special guest here today. Let's jump over to him real quick and go to him.
What's his name, Jason?
I don't know. Well, Tim, I mean, you guys do a lot of cool stuff. I was looking at the site. I had to refine it again today, but we're not talking about that. So what made you come up with the idea? I mean, the way I found you guys, because I was looking at the ProR stuff, and we put it up here on the screen, you kind of see. But you guys built a hood scoop that looked pretty cool, but it's more than just looks.
Yeah, here. I have it up. Sorry. I don't know if we can put this in the screen here. I'll try to hold it up the camera.
Yep.
So this is how it is bolted together. So this is what it looks like in the car.
Okay.
So you can see there. And basically what we're doing and what made me come up with this is, I've been off-road racing since I was a teenager, and I've got some pretty neat cars out back. And, we've had a really nice trophy truck for decades. And my wife doesn't have 300 miles in it. You cannot stand that truck. And we had a buckshot, X4 buggy, that was, it was a little ridiculous in power, but she hated that thing too. But she don't have 50 miles in that. But she's got about 2,000 in the ProR, and we've only had it since 22. And the DV was, when I saw the spec sheet and the prints for the ProR come up on, because I filed quite a few patents, so I saw the patent rights for it, and I was like, okay, now this is a car I think I could buy. So I put an order in right away, and it took us, I don't know, it was like 11 or 12 months to get that first ProR. And we got one of the earlier ones, but we didn't get the launch edition. I didn't want that, that color. The color wasn't me. But anyways, I just knew that with the, the development that I did with DV before the car came out, I can't talk too much about that. But anyways, I knew what the car was going to be like. I had a feeling that she would ride in it, and she did. The DV control takes the body roll out of it, and, you can press the button, you can hammer the red button, and I can get on the gas, and it doesn't lift the front end way up. And that's pretty much what would always make her check out. Like in the truck, especially, you get on this, because it's not a race legal truck. It's, 17 and change horsepower, it's big power truck. And, when you're going 80 mile an hour across the desert and you get on the skinny pedal and the hood blocks out 80% of the view, right then and there, the towel threw on the windshield. She's done. I'm out,
Yeah.
So, and I'm like, okay, so I left the ProR stocking as quiet as I could to try and get her in it. We went for a few rides and she stayed in it. And then I was like, okay, well then, you can't drive when you've got the off-road cars that we've had and that I've been in my whole life. The ProR was an absolute turd, 2,400 pound car with 200 horsepower. It didn't cut the mustard. And the suspension was, in the ATV world, it was amazing, but in the off-road world, it was just, decent, at best.
Yeah.
So, I spent a lot of time getting it to rotate because the car's horribly understeered from the factory. But anyways, by the time I got it done and got it to 300 plus horsepower, now there was a big heat issue. And now I was kicking her back out of the car because her feet were on fire.
Yeah.
She'd go for a 20-mile ride, but she wouldn't go for a 100-mile ride because at 50 miles, your feet are on fire. So I'm like, okay, I got to figure out how to cool this thing down inside because I wasn't real comfortable either. And, I thought about, well, do we get cooled fire suits and put in here? I'm like, that's a bit redundant for a pleasure car. I kind of want to be flip-flop shorts and a hat on backwards,
Yeah.
The whole reason we got the ProR, because in California with the helmet laws, you want to have the choice to wear a helmet. I don't want to be mandated to wear it.
Yeah.
So, I do a lot of airplane stuff, and we worked really hard to get oil temps out of some of these race planes. And so doing scoop technology with, high speeds without creating a lot of airplane drag, or, upsetting the handling or the characteristic stall rates of an airplane, you've got to get pretty crafty at how you scalp air. So I took some of the ideas that we had for the oil cooler off of one of the race planes, and I thought, well, let's try that. We scalp a little tiny bit of air off the side of the plane, but then we open it into a large cavity, into a small cavity to increase the volume and the velocity. And okay, let's try that. So, I went to the old school fashion of, put a bunch of string on the front of the car and see what the airflow patterns are. Just tape a bunch of pink yarn onto it.
Yep.
There was a movie that made that famous that finally everybody else saw it, but
The
we've
Ford.
been doing that in the race trucks forever, since the 80s. It just gives you airflow, charts. But so I realized that front beak really deflected a lot of air up over the top of the hood, and it was a negative. So it was hard to get air from the hood. So that's why we have that big old scoopy beak on the top right here, is to bring it over. And that's also why there's all these angles right here, is to create a low pressure drum to help draw the air back down towards the hood, so we can scalp it with that top beak.
Okay.
And if you look at the design of the hood, it starts up higher and goes narrower. So basically we wanted to accelerate the air and create a higher pressure than what we're scalping. Because the radiator, when I put an anemometer behind the radiator, the anemometer I mounted about 6 inches in front of the firewall, and I wanted to be closer to the firewall, but the frame kind of blocked me from being able to do it. So the anemometer there, when the fan comes on and you're going 20 miles an hour, it would log between 18 and 28 mile an hour wind. So, and the air was sometimes 212 degrees.
Wow.
And I'm like, holy crap, that is just a lot of heat, and,
Yeah.
I would say that, if I looked at a 40-minute run average, the air temperature is about 177 average.
Wow.
And without the fan on going 40 miles an hour, you still have a 13 to 18 mile an hour wind, depending on headwind and all the bit, but averages out, I'd say about 17 mile an hour. So I put a lot of data into the car. I put temp sensors all over inside, put anemometers all over the place on the outside, and just, logged a lot of miles and a lot of data. I think I have 2.5 terabytes of data.
Wow.
So, I mean, it did a lot of data. So, but we're not a high retail store. We never have been. And, most of the stuff we design and build gets sold with somebody else's name on it. And then I had to think about this. Well, I want to sell this to Polaris. That was my plan. I want to sell the design to Polaris, get my paycheck, and, get busy doing something else. Because, repetition, I don't do well. I've always been a, create, move on type of person. So I had to do about, let's see, I think this is the 11th different design of scoop. And the diffuser that you see there with the vanes on it, where if you look on your screen there, there's actually, if you look, really see it, but let me see if I show it here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different guiding holes. So we're channeling air to 8 different locations across the firewall. So I knew if I penetrated the firewall, the chances of selling it to OE would be slim to none. They would have zero interest in it because, they've got so many safety standards they got to deal with, and a burn rate, and you name it. All the stuff that us aftermarket guys don't normally think about. So I knew that I had to do all the work in front of the cab, stay outside the firewall if I wanted them to buy it. And, I did talk to them a little bit about it, but the money wasn't there. So I just decided to take it to market, because by the time I was done, I was about a month into this design, and the firewall we did a 32-minute run, and we had 162. I should have pulled the data and printed it. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
That's okay.
But I posted it all up online too. And the data is what got everybody going. They're like, oh, somebody's actually putting up real numbers.
Yeah.
And a couple other people who make stuff that cool down cars kind of, attacked me a little bit on my numbers, and like, hey, data doesn't lie. Here's a graph. Here's digital numbers. You're not going to skew digital numbers in a graph that coincide each other unless you've got way more time than me to make up shit.
Right.
So, because I don't have enough time to just draw out a graph and make it look like a dyno graph off a temp graph over a 50-minute run, let alone be able to post up 35 or 40 of these different graphs over different days with different ambient temperatures, different average speeds, and you name it. And we took 40 degrees out of the firewall.
Wow.
So
That's a lot.
I mean, yeah, that's not little numbers. And now we had no problem in being in the car. And actually, at night, we found that it was cold. We went from being hot to cold. So now it's like, okay, now I need to wait to turn it on and off.
Yeah.
And I came up with a fancy butterfly valve, kind of like almost looked like a top hat for top fuel dragster. You just reach up to the side of the butterfly and close it.
Yeah.
And I looked at the cost of building it, and it added, $170 retail dollars to the kit, and 30-cent Costco microfiber towel turns it off in a second.
There you go.
That's a smart idea.
Yep.
Yeah, you just take the rag like this, show it, and I'm going to go underneath, but when it's in the car, and you just tuck it right into the back of the diffuser like that, and the wind holds it right in place, it don't ever move, and the heater's on.
That's funny.
So when we go to Mammoth, and which we'll be doing next month, we go up there and we'll go for an all-day ride. We'll leave at 10, 11 in the morning, and we'll come back probably 9:30 at night. But up there at 10,000 feet, when that sun gets to the backside of the mountain, it goes from 80s to 40 like in minutes.
Sure.
And, so you leave sweating, and you come home freezing your butt off. So it's nice to just pull over, stuff the rag in there, and the heater's on.
That's great. Like you say, 40 degrees is humongous. That is incredible.
Yeah, but that 40 degrees happens. We're able to take that down. My data's in my phone, and I can't do anything about it. But I wasn't as prepared as I thought.
Yeah, that's all right. We wing it all the time too, buddy.
Yeah. But I averaged 15 miles an hour for 7 minutes. And basically what it did is I got the car hot. So the numbers would be real. If you get the car hot and then you take the heat away,
yeah,
there's no dispute, right?
Yeah.
If you do one test and then you come back and do another test, well, ambient temperature changes, time of day changes, the way you drive changes. There's so many variables that people will say, well, you did this, you did that, you did. Like, okay, well, we're going to go 32 minutes to where we get the peak and the data, where it's as hot as it's going to get. Pull over, put the hood scoop on it, and then take off again. So we're like, I think it was like 57 seconds parked.
Oh,
and
wow.
then started driving. And 2 minutes down the road at 15 miles an hour, we already took like 18 degrees out of the firewall.
My goodness.
And when I say out of the firewall, and remember, all the temp sensors are on the inside of the car, not on the outside.
Right.
So, I'm going to use the numbers. Number 1 sensor is 2 inches to the right of the gas pedal and just above it. Sensor 2 is the passenger floorboard, like what would be the gas pedal location. 3 is the driver's side on the outside of, what your left foot would be. 4 is on the right side. Everybody's like, well, why don't you do 1, 2 on the right, 3, 4 on the left? And I'm like, no, because you want the 2 numbers side by side to be the inner part of the firewall.
Yep.
So, I was doing it geographically for numbers so you could see comparison. Is the inside of the firewall hot? On the driver's side and the passenger side are the same? They different? Which side of the car is hotter?
Yeah.
And the driver is the hotter of them. The driver gets most of the heat.
Okay.
So more so than the passenger, and the passengers complain more.
Well, yeah, and the ProR,
then,
the lines run that side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then put one in the dash behind just underneath the storage compartment up in the dash there up above the right command.
Yep.
Had 1 sensor in there, then 1 sensor underneath the cup holders. So in the center console.
Yep.
And then 2 on the floor underneath the driver and passenger.
Okay.
So that's where we put all the temp sensors in the car and pulled all the data from. But like I say, 2 minutes down the road and an average of 15 miles an hour, we already pulled 18 degrees out of the car. And the ambient temperature was actually 1 degree higher. So it was because we started it earlier, and it was getting warmer as we went. So the temperature was climbing out the day as we tested in, and still everything we did with the hood scoop, we were still seeing dramatic, temperature drops.
That is awesome.
And then, so it took 32 minutes for the car to get hot, but then, we finished the ride 28 minutes after the hood scoop. And at the 28-minute mark, the temperature was still on a downward trend in the data. The slope was still downtrending. Everything was still downtrending. So, as long as you maintain 15 miles an hour. And when we got down to 7 miles an hour, the temperature would start to climb back up, but nowhere near the peak that it was. But it just wouldn't keep the same cooling trend going. It would plateau. So the car will stay, the firewall will stay on average about 24 degrees cooler at 7 miles an hour than it will with nothing, without the hood scoop.
Okay.
So
nice.
Just at 7 miles an hour. So, and by the way, we're testing this on a supercharged ProR, so the heat factor was quite a bit higher.
Sure. Now you've been testing, or you're talking about, you're testing for comfort. Now that air intake on the front of that machine also serves for your belt, right? I mean, that's where your belt.
Correct.
Have you been checking infrared temps of the belt throughout this as well?
So now this is where the secondary testing comes in, and where another terabyte of data comes from. So now this is the performance side of the hood scoop. I have a couple friends who race the ProR in the desert, and they were at NORA last year, and they kept having to back off the skinny pedal because the belt temps were getting to 270.
270?
270.
Oh my!
Remember the ProR, because of the way that the sensor's mounted, it sprays right on the running surface of the belt.
Yep.
So it reads quite a bit higher than any other belt temp before the belt lets go. But, so even mine, I hardly ever get over 211. I have to work pretty hard to even get to 211.
Yeah.
Usually my CV boots blow up before I get to 220.
Okay.
Belt temp. I have a big problem with CV boots blowing up on my car.
Oh.
So, yeah, I think I've gone through close to 30 sets now.
My goodness, what? You just got too much of an axle angle?
I'm 11 degrees.
And it's tearing the boots out of it.
No, they pop.
They're just because of the heat.
Yeah, they get so hot they blow up. Because I like a couple of times I've pulled over just in the nick of time to look at them, and it looks like a water balloon.
Man,
they're just blown up. There's no louvers left at all. It's just a big round ball back there, and and then while we were sitting there, one popped because the hot spot on the bottom, it's melted to the corner, and there was enough pressure, and it popped. So and now I put a little pinhole through the edge of them to kind of help, but now I've got some heat sinks on it that we're working on to try and help it, and it seems to be doing a little better, but my car's not running very good right now, and she just got too many miles on it, so she's down getting a little love right now.
Gotcha.
She's got 7,200 miles of boost on her and a total of like 15,100 miles on her.
Oh wow.
So she's got a few minutes on her. And it's held up really well. I'm pretty impressed with how little parts I've had to replace. And the majority of the parts I have to replace have been repetitive, like this CV boots. And I broke one axle, but that was driver error. I've had a couple of CVs fail, but I think it's because they lost their grease and then they failed, and I didn't catch it in time. But there was a big enough mess where I'm going to blame it on the fact that they lost grease. But, I have 3 sets of axles and I just swap them out because the boots are popped. And I've been recycling those axles over and over and over and over again. Put a new boot on it, go again. Put another boot on it, go again.
Yeah. Man, what do you just drive at 90 everywhere you go?
90's kind of slow, isn't it?
I like this guy, Jason. I like this guy.
I did a run. I don't know. It's been about 5-6 weeks ago. I did a solo ride by myself, one car. I went from Reno, Nevada to Williams, Arizona.
Oh wow!
So So basically Flagstaff, 1,413 miles or something like that.
Oh man.
And 32 hours moving. So did it in 2 days.
You were getting it, man.
So, but when I did a ride from Williams, Arizona to the Grand Canyon, there's a couple of trails there that, I mean, they just beg you to put skinny pedal on the floor and just see what it'll do. It's like, you know, you've got this perfect bowl of a road, you know, it's like a bathtub that's probably 3 miles across, and you can see, you know, a half a mile off the trail on each side. So you can see if there's any livestock coming, you know, you can pretty much see everything you'd ever be able to see at its speed, and say that, you know, this is about the safest place to lay wood that you can lay it. And I was just like, let's just figure it out what the GPS will do, you know. And it was at 9310 RPM for 2.2 miles.
Oh, wow.
Oh, impressive.
So
impressive.
with 35 tires on it, and it lost the CV boot.
Yep. Wow.
So all it took was 2.2 miles. And before that, I was just trying to average. My goal was to do that trip on a 40-mile-an-hour speed average.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there and back out. And the terrain's pretty forgiving. You know, it's pretty mellow in that area. So a 40-mile-an-hour average there's a lot of turns. So I think I lost 30% of my tires on that because it was just so turny. But God, was it fun. You know, it was just like a giant slalom for, I think it was it 200 miles, 210 miles round trip? Yeah, just over 200 miles round trip. And it was 6 hours and 41 minutes or 5 hours and 41 minutes moving, something like that. Yeah.
Wow.
So, but yeah, I think the average was 41 minutes or 41 miles an hour was the average speed for that. So, and that was a very comfortable pace that I would take my grandmother at, you know. Actually, you know, I wouldn't, that skinny pedal flat, there's a couple of flat spots where we're going well over 100. I would have stayed at 50 or 60, but so I'm sure that would have killed my average a little bit, because those you know, those stints kind of helped the mile an hour a bit. But like at those kind of speeds, I had a big problem with the belt tube that goes through underneath blowing apart.
Okay.
Oh.
You know, the hood scoop was shoveling so much air into the belt that was actually blowing the tube off of the center console.
That's impressive.
So, so I have done a fair bit of testing there. At 50-mile-an-hour ground speed, with the anemometer sealed up at the back of the outlet of the plastic tubing where it comes out of the tunnel.
Mm-hmm.
So before it makes the jog into the belt cover, at 50 miles an hour with the stock hood scoop, this is going to kill you. It has negative 13-mile-an-hour wind speed. So it's actually the stock hood scoop causes a draft.
Really?
Well, I want to go faster. I don't want to go slower.
Isn't that insane?
Wow.
So it causes a draft in forces water.
When everybody says, you know, I can smell belt in my ProR, well, now you know why. Because the stock hood scoop creates a vacuum. It sucks the smoke right into the hood.
Yeah.
Blows it right in your face.
Puts it right in your face.
So, there you go.
I can smell that a lot sometimes.
Yeah. That's driver
now
error.
You know why.
No, that's driver error, Tim. That's driver error.
Driver error?
Yeah, that's why he smells belt.
No.
No, it's not error.
I'm a great driver.
No, he is a great driver. I guess I shouldn't call it error. It's his switch. He's got that throttle pedal on a switch.
Well,
it's either up or down.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's brain off, gas on. That's Mr. Jason.
If you want me to go slower, you put a bolt underneath there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like the old style, you got to put a couple screws in there or something to make it slower.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that, because a few years ago I was testing with a guy, and like, oh, there's something wrong with the car. It won't go over the speed. And it's funny, is for a joke, we took some two-faced tape and put a block and blocked it to the floor underneath the gas pedal.
Yeah.
And after the next lap, he came back in. We're like, is the car any better? And he's like, no. Is it any worse? No. Like, well, we found the problem. And they're like, well, what's the problem? you're not putting the gas pedal on the floor because there's a block that's stopping it now, and you didn't notice.
Something's wrong.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. You should have felt that pedal didn't go any further down, and he didn't. So we solved that problem in a hurry.
That's
And
funny.
that was the days before you had data logger and you could pull up the ECU and look,
Yeah.
So now it's great because I can just pull into data, and figure out what they're doing wrong. But back in the old days, we didn't have that data. So
No.
So anyways, at 50 miles an hour now, with our high flow filter on it, you have 100-mile-an-hour air coming out. Between 97 and 103 is the airspeed coming out of that tube at the tunnel.
Man.
So it's about a 300% increase in airflow to the secondary clutch.
Yeah, that is impressive. Great work, Tim.
So, and Todd racing Nora, he was pulling, like I said, he was getting to 270 and having to slow down and wait for the belt to cool before he could start laying the skinny pedal again.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a friend in San Diego that was going down there, so I overnighted one to San Diego, and he took it down to Mexico with him, and he had it on the car the next day. And on that same test loop and qualifying loop, 218 was the most they could get.
Wow.
So he probably picked up some time.
He did. And unfortunately, it wasn't a good race for him that year. He had some mechanicals and a few issues that it kept him out of it. But, his car's well built and he drives well. He just doesn't always have the best luck.
Well, I mean, so you're cooling the belt enough in temperature wise, where you're gaining, you're in the sweet spot of performance all the time. You know as well as anybody, you get those temps up, your belt gets a little greasy, and that just contributes to more heat, and it just continues to snowball and snowball. Where if you're maintaining that belt temp, you're maintaining your grip, right? I mean, clearly,
absolutely,
yeah.
And belt life is unbelievable. Like,
yeah,
I rode this whole dune season on one belt.
That is cool. And clutches, you're saving your clutches as well. Everything back to he says. Yeah.
15,000 miles, and I haven't even replaced the rollers in the secondary yet.
Wow. Jason's on clutch number
3, 4.
I don't even know.
I don't know. But like, I'll run it like we're gassing at full out speed, slamming the brakes, sliding the corner, and then hitting it again.
Yeah.
Over and over and over, and it just gets hot and hot and hot.
Yeah. Yeah, we can get some heat in them quick. And we typically are running a heavier tire, where you've got big tires on it.
Yeah.
So.
How big are your tires?
We're running 35s and 12.5 wide.
On 10-inch wheels. I mean, they're heavy. They're a truck tire. They're an 8-ply.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah,
I'm running a 35, but I am running the KM3s. So they're relatively light for 35s. But
yep.
I run them on a 7-inch wheel because I just found that the wider wheel it didn't do anything for me. It took away ride. Corning was inconsistent. It would bite or it would be real loose. It didn't ever have a gradual fadeaway. It didn't talk to you before it would let go.
Yep.
It would either be bit or it'd be loose. And I like predictability. I'll take a little bit less overall performance for 100% predictability.
Sure.
So I like my car to be super predictable and know exactly what it's going to do. And I have like I don't know, I'm going to call it's probably 17-mile test loop that I do here. Yep. That I can run right from the shop from. And it's pretty legit, It's more of a rally type trail than it is an off-road trail. I mean, there's no real jumps in it other than the water bars. And a couple of them are pretty big. You can send it. But for the most part, it's more of a rally course. It's a logging road. It's tight. And there's some sections on it that are really tight. And I've given quite a few people who've come up and I've done installs at a test ride down that. And they're like, your car's unbelievable. Like, you come around the corner and it slides. And while you're sliding, you get on the gas. And while you're getting on the gas, the back end squats all the way down. And you can feel the car just hooking and driving.
Mm-hmm.
And how did you get it to do that? And it's just like, that's a lot of testing. And see all the spring, and I pointed to the top up there, and I've got like 9 sets of springs up there. And I'm like, those are all trial and errors.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
and So, and a lot of sway bar relocation and trying the Pro R and versus the Turbo R front sway bar. That's a pretty cheap and easy way to get the car to turn a little better. It's just on the two-seater and just put the Turbo R front sway bar in. It bolts right in. The arms clamp right on it, but
Yeah.
it's about 35 pounds lighter than the Pro R sway bar.
Oh, okay.
So I have the Turbo R in mine. Plus, I have multiple mounting locations on my A-arms. I welded new mounts on my A-arms, so I have 3 locations for the sway bar. So I can adjust it according to terrain. So
Nice.
Yeah, that's a lot of modification. That's why you're engineering.
Yeah. And that's
well, when you've spent your life driving race cars that were good, and then I spent a decade in Australia racing rally cars and the FIM, and when you're on a top level rally car, there's very little room for mistake in rally. You're dealing with inches at speeds that are stupid. So I've always, every time I've come home from Australia and went down to Mexico to race and off-road, I struggled for the first couple of days. It's just like, these things don't turn. So it's like, I've always spent forever trying to get my off-road car to try to turn as close to a rally car as I could, because I just learned it. I mean, when you pull 1.1 G's in the dirt, that's a car that turns.
Yeah, it is.
And my Pro R on these roads up here, I'm seeing 0.8, which for a narrow pivot, radius arm car, I'm pretty happy with 0.8.
Yeah.
Especially with a KM3,
Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah,
So,
you got to have something in there. I mean, remember we were talking about something the other day too. It was about the shocks on those things, about your kick out. Was it the kick out on those, or when you're jumping?
There's something in the ECU that I haven't been able to pinpoint it, but I haven't been able to find a way to data log the ECU for the EPS and the shocks. Nobody's got anything that's going to help me get in there, and I've talked to a few electronics guys that I know, and they're like, I can do it, Tim, but you're looking probably a $50,000 investment. I'm like, I don't see me recovering that.
No.
So I just kind of left it alone, and now I know when to expect it, but I have no idea what's causing it. And I thought it was, in the beginning, I thought it was something to do with my car and my car alone. And then I got into a friend's car and we did the same thing. And his is a 4-seater. His did exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
And then had 2 other people come. I said, just flat foot it down the hill, launch off that bump and land, and tell me if the steering wheel jerks when you land. Everybody's car did it. That was an ultimate. Except for Andrew's car, which had Kings on it, doesn't do it. He's got a sport model that he put King shocks on, and his car does not jerk on the steering wheel anywhere, anytime. And like, have you ever gotten a weird jolt? He's like, never. And Andrew drives pretty stupid.
That's a good friend to have.
Yeah.
Those people, I say, everybody's got a friend that breaks more parts than anybody else. And Andrew's my friend that breaks more parts than everybody else I know. Not anybody else.
Nice.
That's a good friend to have then.
Yeah, it is.
Oh. You just strap a video camera on the front of his car and just let him go.
Nope.
It would be entertainment. It would be entertainment at its finest, especially if you add a little bit of liquid courage in there too. Then all bets are off. And he has mellowed a little bit after, now that he's in his 60s. His he doesn't do gap jumps anymore. Put it that way.
Okay.
Yeah, those are. I got away from those too. Our friend hit one of those and broke his back.
Yep.
Yeah, so did he.
So the tabletop jumps I'm good with. The gap jumps, I mean, it takes anything from a car error to something shorting out or you getting lack of,
Yep.
Yep.
He just came up a tiny bit short, and the the car design that he was in was one of his early models, and his seat hit the ground.
That's what happened to our buddy. Yeah. He just shorted it just a little and bottomed out. And
Yeah. By about 6 inches.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Yeah.
done.
Yeah. Yeah. Not
So,
good.
and it's been good. He makes a trailing arm for the ProR that I've been testing for a little over a year now, and they work really, really well.
Nice.
So he did a lot of, took a lot of what he learned building his sand cars, and he makes some really exaggerate bitchin' sand cars. But they're pretty elaborate, and they work pretty good. I like my stuff to turn better than his stuff does, so they're not perfect for me. But I bet if I had my hand in building it my way for me, I would love it.
Yeah.
So, but for compared to everything else that's running in the dunes, they're on point. For a car that'll get through the bumps, it's the best turning car that'll still get through the bumps, I think.
Oh.
The Funkos will outturn it, but the Funkos won't get through the bumps.
Mm-hmm.
If you try to run a Funko down the drags on a rough weekend, you're in for a wild ride, and
Right.
his will eat him.
Oh, they probably don't have a lot of the grading out there. Do they grade the drag strips or no? No.
Yeah,
Okay.
you can't grade out there without a permit. So
Okay.
I got away with it back in let's see what era was that. We built a drag quad. A friend of mine and I, we went in partners in it, and I built it just because everybody said a 4-stroke could never win. Just like, how stupid are you people? 2-strokes are bitching, and little displacement. When it comes to bigger displacement, a 2-stroke will get owned by 4-stroke. And they told me I was off my rocker. So I looked at Rod and I was like, well, let's do it. So I think it was 07. We went 122 miles an hour at Bolsonville.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And nobody's been close.
Well, that's why you want to prove them wrong.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing wrong with that.
We did the drag racing against them here and there, and I took it to Banshee Wars, and we 2-and out everybody in Banshee Wars the one year that it actually ran. It took me a long time to keep a tranny and keep a chain. So we only get about 18 to 20 passes out of a transmission, and it would just disintegrate. And
wow.
I mean, I ran those trannies and our drag bikes on the blacktop for 2 seasons, and just freshen them up, no problem. But man, them pedal tires just jackhammered that tranny apart. It just blow the dogs right off of it.
Oh,
and
wow.
It just stopped shifting and stopped staying in gear, and no warning that it was coming. And you could never do an override transmission on it because it would just disintegrate itself the first time you launched it, because it had so much wheel spin that it just destroyed the transmission. So it got tricky. And in 07 there wasn't enough tires. I tried cutting and grooving and banging and this and that. We tried everything, and there just wasn't a good tire for it. There wasn't enough weight for super scoopers. It would just lift up off the ground and it would stop throwing dirt. Diggers shook so bad you couldn't see where you're going, and still they would lift the car up or the bike up off the ground, and so it was tough. Stand Tire Unlimited had the best tire for us, and I put I drilled all the tops of the paddles and had titanium rods in them that went all the way through, and then sealed it and had to run a tube inside it to keep it from leaking, and then we vulcanized the patch underneath the bottom of it, but to ridge it up the paddle enough so they just wouldn't bend over.
Oh, wow.
Because it would, as soon as you left the clutch out, it was 105 mile an hour wheel speed.
Mm-hmm.
And on a quad. So it was pretty ridiculous. And, I took that quad all over the place, and they're like, well, you probably should change the gearing. I'm like, I don't need to change gearing. I got 200 plus horsepower that I can't use. So if it doesn't pull the gear, just bump the boost up 5 pounds, problem solved. It's like, the motor, the best of dyno was like 641 at the wheels. And I don't think I ever brought it back after a winning run and it think 372 is the most it put down. It's a tune that ran the fastest on the hill. So you had 300 horsepower that you can't use. So it's like it's really easy to test and tune when you got that kind of spare power.
Yeah.
Make a pass. Look at the data. Oh, I could put a little more. I was full throttle almost all the way up. Put a couple pounds of boost in it. Go again. Oh, nope, can't ride it now. And then it was eight and change with the nitrous.
Huh.
And I did a few nitrous passes, but it just jackrappeted so bad. It was just fun. It didn't go fast.
No.
But and, do you know who Larry Miner is?
No, sir.
He's a drag race legend from the old pro stock days. When pro stock racing used to have big money in it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And he built a whole little clan of Jeeps. And with the turkey shoot at Glamis one year, I brought it, and his son-in-law looked at the kid that was helping me as we were taking out the trailer, and he goes, "That's a pretty big turbo on that. It's a 1.3 liter motor with a GT35R turbo on it." And he's like, "What kind of power does it make?" And I was just ignoring him because he wasn't talking to me. Like, "I think it's about 500. And him and Larry Miner laughed. They're like, "Yeah, right. Think you got 500 horsepower on that thing, kid?" And he's like, "I don't know, but it's somewhere around there." And I started it up, and I run it on, and in 07, nobody had two steps.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And almost nobody knew what anti-lags were.
Yeah.
And I don't like the popping anti-lags because it's hard on turbo shafts, and I like my turbos to live a long time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I just did it differently. I would do a secondary throttle stop and hold the throttle at a 40 count, and then just dump timing until it controlled RPM. So but on that thing, I just did a couple of negative timing zones where you held it at light throttle, high RPM, where you could never get to driving it, and just built it into the regular run program. A little lean zone with a little timing dump, so we'd put a lot of heat in the exhaust. You hold it there for a half second and then wick it, and see the boost gauge smack 20 in neutral.
Huh.
And he heard that blow off valve at 20. They don't go whoosh at 20.
No.
They whoop, whoop, whoop. And he turned his head quick, and then he came over. He goes, "Wait a minute, look at the size of the chain on that effing thing." So I went over to the hill, and I just did a little checkout pass. I just rolled through the bumps at the bottom, rolled throttle on, shift second, and just wicked it up to boost and let off, and came back and plugged it into the data. And some little long-haired kid comes running over the hill and goes, "He just went 99 miles an hour." And Larry Miner looked at him and says, "What?" And he goes, "Yeah, I heard him go up the hill." He goes, "That was 90? And he goes, "Yeah, 99.3. And you only were on it for like less than half the hill, and you were like real slow gear change, real slow roll on. Like, how fast is it going to go?" I'm like, "No idea. Never been here." So,
Nice.
so, but yeah. And so I did the second pass, and it was like 106 miles an hour. And Larry came up and he goes, "You need a trailer ball right here." And he puts it right at the front of the seat. And you just shove that trailer ball up your ass to keep you on that thing.
Did it work?
No, I just put a step seat in it. That was a little, because I wanted to be able to, I didn't want to be locked in on the seat on that because it was long travel. And somebody said, the only way you would go through the whoops on Oldsmobile at 100 miles an hour is in a helicopter on your way to the ambulance, way to the hospital. I went 106 and change through the whoops of Oldsmobile. So, we spent a lot of time on the shocks on that. It was kind of neat situation. It has the Fox floats on the rear, tandem, in front of each other, one up front and one in the back.
Okay.
With the pressure out of it. So when the motor came on boost, it raised the rear shock air pressure 100 pounds.
With the pressure?
Yeah. Because, and if Fox is like, those are 150 PSI max shocks. And I'm like, there's two of them. If I blow one, I know where to get another one.
Yo.
So, and they're like, well, they kind of were on board with it for a little bit, and then they kind of weren't on board with it. And then they were like, well, we'll just give you the shocks and see how it works. And we got a lot of publicity for them, so they were pretty happy. But in the end, they're like, don't tell anybody you ran more than 150 pounds of air in them. And I'm like, well, you rate them for 150, so that means they can take any amount of abuse at 150. So I ran the front one at 175, and the back one started at 150, and then when it came on boost, it would go just shy of 250. Because what was happening is the chain torque kept pulling the suspension, so it'd run out of travel with no bumps. It would just squat all the way down and run out of travel, and then, when you hit a bump, it got a little ugly. So I'm like, how do I get more? So I came up with this little boost regulated thing, and it worked out really good.
Nice.
So it had a on-board launch control and data stuff. You could pull up a video of it if you wanted to see it, but that was kind of the end of the last hoorah I did for our own race bike that we drove or rode personally. So I rode that bike the whole time, but now we kind of do a lot with airplanes.
Nice.
Like regular airplanes or remote control?
No, that's not an airplane. That's a toy. If you can't be in there doing this to make it fly, it ain't an airplane.
I'm just double checking.
Yep.
No, right now, we just unofficially set the time to climb world records. So we've been working on that for a fair bit now. So it's pretty good. They're gonna do on Monday, Memorial Day. They've got the Guinness Book of World Record people out there, and they're gonna make it official. But unofficially, this morning we beat the record by a big number.
Oh wow!
Wow, good for you.
So and I mean a really big number, like nobody's believing it. Big number. So it's feeling pretty good right now. So tonight I'm gonna pull some data out of the motor and probably going to pull the top end off and just have a peek at everything because we ran pretty hard today. So
you got to do it again on Monday?
Yeah. And I won't be there to see it this time. I'm racing myself in Fernley, so I won't be there. But all the data is good. I just want to make sure that, the motor's on borrowed time now that we've done 3 climbs with it today. So make sure everything's good because I leaned on it the last pass today really hard just to see if it would make it any faster. And yeah, we haven't found the ceiling. We still have enough prop to put more power to it, so we could do more power. And I just told him, I said, you know what, that number's a big enough statement. Let's just go with what we know.
Yeah.
Leave well enough alone for now, and now, make it easy for you to repeat or better yourself.
Yep.
But let's just stick with what we know right now because we beat it by a big margin. So hopefully
awesome.
Monday goes just as good. So.
Well, I can't wait to hear about that one.
Yeah.
I'm just like off the record here. I feel like there's a lot of extreme stuff going on here. Buggies, side by sides, planes.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I think I've played in just about every discipline.
Yeah.
Nice.
100 mile an hour side by or 4-wheelers.
Yeah, and boats. Yeah, we've got a few boats out there too.
Nice.
So, yeah.
That seems like a lot of a stream. I'm still driving down to the ice cream shop getting ice cream in mine.
Oh, too
yeah.
funny.
Well, I mean, I went and got groceries in mine last week.
At 100?
Well, actually, it been a few weeks ago, but yeah.
Well,
and I didn't break a single egg coming home.
Nice. Well, when he said to me earlier that he had his wife in a buckshot, I'm like, yeah, this he's legit.
Make her do wheelies.
Yeah. So I did.
Yeah.
The buckshot that's the long travel that I want. I mean, hands down. I don't think there's a better one out there in my opinion. I think they're beautiful. They're amazing, and yeah, I want one bad.
Yeah.
I got Andrew into this game.
Did you?
Really?
Yeah. Jet Ski World, and when he first started, got done racing quads, that's what he was doing for a while, and he was playing in the jet ski stuff, but he would come out to Glamis and he'd ride his quad and I'd ride my bike, and he'd always camp together. I built a little 980-pound Volkswagen car,
Oh
sub
wow.
1,000-pound car, and I did what Andrew calls the first long travel sand car.
Okay.
And now you would call it a mid travel car because it was, like 18 usable inches in the rear
Okay.
and 14 or 16 up front. I can't remember now, whatever, a +2 beam. But I did a +10 beam up front, made a real nice aluminum beam for the front, and mounted mounts to that, and did a rack and pinion mount that mounted to the beams, and made some custom arms for it. And the front was good. And then, back in that day, which was, let's see, 89. Yeah, because he was at an 89 4-track, so yeah, that would have been 89. And I took shocks off of one of our race trucks, which was the Olin, which had the high and low speed compression and rebound adjusters on them. And back then, everybody looked at those knobs and like, what do these do?
Yeah. Yeah.
They adjust?
Yeah, you can adjust your shock. And like, yeah, when it gets rough, you just open this clicker up, and when you want it to, land better, you take that little screw in right there. And they're like, really? Like, what do those cost? And, back then, I think they were like $2,100 for the pair.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when, the alternative was like $45 a pair.
Yeah.
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 And I think Coney's were $200. Yeah. You could get the Coney, what they called adjustable back then, for $200. And that was big money. Everybody was like, oh, Coney's are too expensive. But, those are over $2,000 for 2 shocks.
Oh.
Like, yeah. And then airbag to rear. So I did a mid-board mounted small 6-inch travel bag,
Okay.
mounted in the middle of the trailing arm. And I didn't have long enough shock, so I just laid the rear shock down like flat, so it would do the travel,
Yo.
And the shock couldn't do the rebound control. So we were out at Glamis, I was trying to valve them, and I didn't have any more threads on the shaft, and I'm like, well, what am I going to do now? And I'm thinking about it, and I had my motorhome there, and oh, look at this, fishing weight, lead, and I beat it into the piston and closed all the ports down with lead. And then took all of the compression valving off except for to close the face, and put it all on the rebound side to control rebound. And I'm like, the bag's got an internal bump stop in it, so I'm good to go. And dude, I think I drove it that way for 4 years. It worked awesome.
Nice.
But back then they had those little UTV whoops on going all the way down to the store, and you get from like comp and like, let's go to the store and get ice cream, and I would just blitz the whoops, and Andrew would be over there on his quad just getting the shit kicked out of him.
Yeah.
I'm just like checking him out. Hey buddy, how's it going? And just blitz down there. And it's funny, we're sitting there, and this younger guy on a bike, he just sits down on my tire, and he put his forearm right here on the shock, on the rear shock, and it burnt him, like blister burn.
Yeah.
And he's like, whoa, and he's screaming and yelling, and I'm laughing, and he's like, what's so funny? He said, well, that'll teach you to put your arm on somebody's car you don't own. And he's like, well, dude, something just burned me. And I'm like, the shock. And the guy's like, shocks aren't supposed to get that hot. Did they get that hot when you race them?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, and he's like, well, how hot do they get? And I'm like, well, the temp tape on them says they're at 320 degrees right now. That's going to burn you.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Remove skin for free.
But I took his wife for a ride, and back then it wasn't even his wife yet. And she's like, this is cheating. So then he decided that and then we would go bombing at night. And he's like, dude, you can just rip through the whoops going up Olds or comp? Like, yeah, watch. And we'd go to the back, and come over that little roller at the bottom in second gear, and I'd pedal it with the tires light and pull up and bang third and just wheel tap right through the whoops. And you'd see people do this when they see you coming over the hill, because someone would do it half your speed, and then the cars would just and they just almost die, and they see you come twice as fast and then get after it, and then carry the front wheels into the whoops, they'd be just like, oh my God, they're going to die. Oh my gosh, the thing just went right through them.
Yeah.
And Andrew's like, that is just insane bitching.
That is cool.
The car doesn't look like nothing. And then you can grab it from the driver's seat and literally pick the 2 passenger wheels off the ground with just one person.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Car's light, you know? So,
Yeah.
and it just had a little 2332 Volkswagen in it, turbo. It's like, I think it was like 330 horsepower. It wasn't big power, but when your car's sub 1,000, it was quick.
Sure. Yeah.
So you give him the ideas of putting better shocks on the buckshots.
Yeah.
No, he didn't have a buckshot then. He didn't have anything. His actual first car he built was a Playtech. It had that I-beam front end, that like a mimic of the old Ford.
Yeah.
Okay.
He built that Playtech, and he brought it out to Glamis, and I think it lasted 2 hours. And it was just wadded. And
oh man.
I think I actually I had my F-150, and I had a pre-runner 150, and I think I drove it out in the dunes and drug his buggy back to his trailer for him, and because the front end was just gone, just snapped right off. And so then he rebuilt that and made it stronger, and then something else broke the next time. I think it made it almost a full day the second trip. Then the third trip, I don't know, 2 seasons it never made a weekend. It was dead before the weekend was over every time.
Oh.
So he had to ride with you?
He's like, by the time he got it to last like 2 weekends in a row, he had completely rebuilt everything on the car. And he's like, well, if I got to rebuild everything on the car, I'm just going to build a car.
No.
So then he built a new car, and he's like, take that for a drive. And I come back and I'm like, yeah, it goes through the bumps good, but it turns like shit. I mean, I almost rolled it like right away. I was just like, I've got, I don't know. It didn't have a very big motor at that one. It was not too gnarly, and I'm giving it a little pedal and turn the wheel, and it's just going straight, just push straight, and then it wouldn't turn. So finally, I lifted, and then it just snapped, and like now I'm back tires first, right? I'm just like, whoa, and then it starts to bike up, and then it's an open diff rear end. I get on the skinny pedal, and the high tires spinning, and the low tires doing nothing.
Yeah.
And like right before it goes over, I got the turning brake on and locked the up wheel and got power to the bottom one. It drove out of it. I'm like, oh, that was way too close. So I just drove right back to camp. At that point, I got about, without and back, maybe an 1/8 mile. You can keep this thing. I want no part of that car. And he's like, and his buddy came up and goes, dude, how the hell did you save that? And I said, thank God he had turning brakes, or we'd all be figuring out how to get it off its roof right now.
Yeah.
It would have been towed back another time, a new one.
Yep.
Right? Well, you're towing this one back because of me, and I'm like, dang, I crashed somebody's car on a test ride. That would have just killed me.
Yeah.
Because still to this day, I've only had one issue with the test drive, and it was with a Ford. So,
Yeah.
When we were working on the Raptor project, I worked on the Raptor project at Fox, and before the Raptor was, released, and we had 6 Raptors the first day, and not one of them made it home.
That was a good day at work.
No, it wasn't, because they all broke in the first day, and we were scheduled to be there for 11 days, had 3 semis and 28 people. And now we were trying to figure out what to do with all these people in this time slot we wanted to fix the trucks, but Ford's like, nope, it's got to be engineered and done. And then, because it's got to be, I'm like, well, we'll just fix them. And when we get it strong enough, then you can just reverse engineer it and you're done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, doesn't work that way with OE.
No, UAW kind of frowns on that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, because the truck I was driving, the first time I decided to try to see if it would live through a mile of whoops, it ripped all the lower shock mount right out of the diff.
Jeez Louise.
So, but, it ripped the whole arm off and everything. And then when the arm when the diff came back up, it got a hold of the arm and bent the shock. Then the whole bracket assembly that went down below that and curved down below that the shock went into, got into the drive shaft and took the drive shaft out, and it ripped the drive shaft out of the back, and then it pulled out. Then the front of pulled the drive shaft out of the transmission. Then the front hit the dirt, and the back of the drive. Now you see the pole vault that's coming, right? So yeah, it pole vaulted that truck pretty good.
Oh, lucky you didn't get hurt.
Outside. It stayed on all four wheels, but that truck didn't drive again.
No.
Do you think it's the driver? I'm just asking for a friend.
Well,
no, because I was the last one to break the truck.
That's what I'm talking about.
I got 120 something miles further than anybody else did, and more test data and faster speed. So I think I won that war.
Nice.
That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
There you go. That's all that matters. Yep.
They should have a trophy for that one.
Yeah, but I will say,
I do know that two of Ford's test drivers had to go to the hospital and do an overnight stay. So
oh
wow,
because they whacked their head pretty good when they rolled. So nobody got hurt in mine. Just the little Ford Pride got hurt.
Yeah,
we do see them testing a lot here in Michigan because they're from here. They go up to the dunes a lot. They'll have their zebra cars marked, and they'll be up there testing them out.
Yeah.
So,
that was a fun project to work on. I enjoyed it there. That was a lot more fun than the first side-by-side project I worked on, which was the Yamaha YXZ.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah.
So, and that was the biggest disappointment of all of my testing time combined.
They sound cool.
Yeah.
No, we spent a lot of time testing on that and how to a shock and everything on that car worked pretty dang amazing. And the bean counters got a hold of the shocks in the budget, and they couldn't come to an agreement on price on the shock the way it was spec'd in the car that we'd worked on for a year.
Yeah.
So basically, they're like, and I think it came down to like 5 cents a shock.
Oh.
You look at 5 cents a shock and you're thinking, what the hell? That's 20 cents. What's it matter? Well, times 200,000, that's money.
Yeah.
But, it just crushes you when you see a whole year's testing thrown out the window for 5 cents.
Yeah.
I don't even care if it was $1 more. If it performed way better, I mean, they have the test and tuning here. Every once in a while, they bring them to the dunes. You guys drove those things.
Yeah, I drove the YXZ. I was going to put the wife in one, and I'm glad I had an opportunity to drive one prior.
The shocks. Yeah. It was the shocks. That was the big thing.
It was the suspension. That was it. And that's exactly what my wife said when we got done with the ride. Yeah. And of course the rep's coming up there, and so how did you like it? What do you think? Are we going to write this deal today? And we had our Can-Am there, and my wife said, no, I like that one springs. You guys got a lot of work to do to this thing before I'll ever own one.
Yeah. That was literally a conversation we had with them.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I was not impressed. But I'm a gearhead. I mean, who doesn't like to hear 12,000 RPMs and pinging gears? So that's why I wanted to get her in that Yamaha. But yeah.
Well, and that's my number one complaint with the ProR right now is there is no casual time. You get in it and you're going through camp at 4,000 RPMs.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean, that there's no quiet time. It's just like every time I drive that thing, I feel like I'm that kid that was just first day on his first shifting bike that he's ever ridden around camp.
Yep.
Every time he goes by, everybody in camp is yelling, shift!
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's why I figured I've been, every time I get in that ProR, I wanted to there's no reason for it to turn $5,000 with 2 liters,
Yeah.
And on a cruise. And the fact that you can't, the fact that they didn't do anything about it. And that's our next big project, product that's coming out, is for the ProR, and we're calling it our overdrive system.
Oh. Nice.
So and basically, we're going to do two versions: an electronic version and a manual version. For price point, for the people who want it but don't want to spend the big money for an electronic programmable one, they can just have one with a simple little knob on it. And my 1,400 mile, that ride I told you about, I had in the car on that, and I was able to get 163 miles to a tank of fuel in a boosted ProR.
Holy smokers! Impressive. Impressive.
So, because when I first did that boosted, I was down to around 80 miles to a tank.
Well, and a stock ProR is not efficient on fuel. I mean, right from the factory. Yeah. What do you get? About 120 maybe at best?
Yeah, depends on my day, how I'm driving.
Yeah, I mean, it's triple digits are tough for either one of us to ever pull out of a gas tank on our machines. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and the terrain was varying. It was rocky, and part of that course I was on is the Vegas to Reno course. So it's not a very friendly course. It's fast, it's rough, but it's difficult to manage speed on and be eco-friendly as far as fuel consumption goes. It's not a very eco-friendly course, because there's a lot of rolling hills, so it's a fuel gobbling line. So I was pretty happy with that, and it was nice to be able to cruise through town. There's a couple towns I had to go in to get gas, but driving down the road at 35 miles an hour at 2,100 RPMs.
Oh, wow.
I am extremely intrigued.
Yeah.
You've got when you get this thing out, you've got to keep us in the loop on that, Tim. That sounds interesting.
So basically, I'm doing it all with an adjustable primary spring. That's adjustable on the fly while the car's running, while you're driving.
Okay.
And the electronics is going to be, and you can even use it for raising your launch RPM. If you want your launch RPM to go up to $5,000, you could just plug in $5,000 to the number, and it'll make it rev to $5,000.
Ooh.
Before it ages. Or if you wanted to go down the road at $2,000, it'll do $2,000. It's a little bit tricky because you have to change the weights.
Yep.
And that's the part I'm not liking, is you got to run the weights really heavy, and you have to put a pretty heavy spring in it, and then you're controlling the spring with a hydraulic over electronic thing. So it's a little bit intricate, but it's the mechanical system is about a 50-minute install.
Huh. Okay.
And that's, take this, starting the stopwatch, go, take the seats out, pull the back cover off, pull the clutch cover off. So basically all you have to do is there, you got to cut a hole in that primary clutch cover. You got to take the clutch cover off, of course, and cut a hole in it, pull the primary clutch, cap off, governor cup off, and the spring out, put the new one on with the new piece on it, and then you've got to put the brace arm on it, so for the hydraulic solenoid to sit on.
Yeah.
And then route the hoses and the wires over to the driver's seat.
No
pretty
kidding.
Simple.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool.
I can't wait to see it.
Using, the majority of the part is some really old technology that I've just repurposed.
Sure.
Well, it's knowledge right there.
Yeah.
A lot of people in the new industry don't have that.
The hydraulic ram system on it, it's actually made for an old manual transmission. It's not made for a viscous drive or a CVT drive.
Yeah.
But it's a great way to control the spring pressure on the primary spring that's adjustable from the driver's seat, and it's like, that's what I want. It's what I need.
Yeah.
The only problem is like, you get driving for a long time. Like when I got tired at the end of the first day, I come into town, I come into a stop, I'm like, oh, the car doesn't want to stop. Oh, right. Adjust the spring back.
Oh yeah. She was closed up on you.
Yeah, so she wouldn't disengage. It's kind of like an old car that you ran out of hydraulic fluid in the clutch pedal, and you push it to the floor, and it just keeps and it's staying engaged.
Yeah.
Oh crap! Turn it off, Tim. Turn it off.
Yep. Nice. Huh. I'm really excited to see that. I really am. I think that's going to be a game changer for a lot of folks, you know, especially that, like you say, you're able to adjust your launch RPM as well. So that's impressive. That's
Yeah.
impressive.
I'm still on the fence. You know, I did a utility patent on the hood scoop. The concept, it's got a utility patent on it. And I don't know if I want to patent that clutch thing or not. I'm kind of leaning against not bothering because a lot of money.
Yeah.
You know? And it'll delay it coming to market like a year. So
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
so and I'm the electronic version. I'm hoping to bring by climate season, and the mechanical version. Um, I'm shooting for like 8 weeks.
Wow. Yeah, like I said,
So
I'd like to see that. And then, I mean, let's face it, that'll be able to you can take that and incorporate that and not just a Pro R. I mean, that should work. That you should be able to anything with a CVT essentially should be able to almost have the same capabilities.
yeah, it's the holding process that makes it complicated and that would make it move from one to the other and making a new clutch cover.
Yep.
So the clutch cover would have to change on it, but the basics, fundamental in the middle of it, yes, that could stay exactly the same.
Yep.
But you need a way to tie it and hold it stationary. So that's the big problem to keep it from spinning.
Gotcha.
So the bracketry for that is what's going to have to change from model to model. Unfortunately, I wish there was a way to do a universal one that would just hold the unit from spinning and stay stationary. And then, the electronic ones, you got to have a real easy disconnect, and the electronics got to stay outside the clutch cover. Otherwise, if you shred a belt, it's going to take out the wires, and everybody's going to be butthurt about that. And it's not if you shred a belt, it's when and how many.
Yep.
So that's been
Yep.
the part that's like, how do I keep it impervious to belt destruction? That's wasn't as hard to tackle as I thought it would be. So
Nice. Very nice. Good work, man. Yeah, I'm impressed.
so yeah.
Very
But
impressed.
I'm sorry I didn't get you guys the hood scoop. I meant to get one to you so you'd have it in your hands when we did this podcast. But I wanted you to get one with the logo, and I just picked them up from the powder coater yesterday. So
Okay.
I've got them here, and I'm going to get it out to you guys tomorrow. So you'll get. I'm going to send you so you guys can put your own fingers on them and wiggle wiggles. I'm going to give you all three of the filters: the first generation of the slip-on filter, the second generation of the slip-on filter, and then the high flow filter.
Okay.
The high flow filter. Actually, if you want to pause just a second here, and
Yeah,
let
we're
me
good.
go get a couple of pieces, and I'll be right back.
All right.
Okay, I'm gonna take a quick pee.
Okay.
Hi, guy.
Beep. Beep. Come on.
Oh, oh.
Oh yeah. Real quick, right back in a second. Okay. Rich. Oh. I think I'm gonna switch that program out. I'm gonna try the other one.
Yeah, it's been really glitchy, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Here he is.
Honey? No, I gave him
Sorry.
treats. I don't think so. We were out an hour and a half ago or so, 2 hours ago. Yeah, it's at 268 megabytes.
So this is our standard filter right here.
Oh, okay.
So this slips over the belt inlet tube and works with the stock hood scoop or any hood scoop to protect water and sand and debris from getting into the belt tube.
Okay.
So the guys who run a windshield, you know, if you take a big load of water over the hood, that windshield acts like a filler up.
Yeah.
It pours down the backside and just fills the belt up. And this does a pretty good job of blocking that out.
Nice.
So we've had this out for about 2 years now. And like I said, this one fits with everybody's hood scoop. And then
We've
for
been-
the boosted guys,
We've been looking for that. We have not been able to find one.
we make two versions of it. This
Yeah.
is the early version that's got the heavy Duron on the sides and the filter screen on the top.
Yep.
And now we came out with a new one that's got neoprene around the sides. So it holds a little bit tighter on the tube and you can get the top to stay real flat. This one has had a habit of getting a little bit of concave on it on the top if it rattles. And I tell people you can put screws in the side of the tube for this elastic to catch on and it'll keep it from lifting back up. But some people don't want to do that. So we came out with a new one now that it's just making it to market now, the one with the neoprene in it.
Okay.
And then this is our high flow. It's got 2.5 times the screen flow area on it.
Yeah.
And this whole bottom cavity, so this is the opening right here of the actual belt size. I only just turn it around.
Yep.
Yep.
So when you turn around, and then you can see the drain holes right here. And then this mounts in the car at an angle like that. So any water that does come in, let me get you one here without the screen on it. You can see that it's got a little plate right here. And then the drain holes are right here in the bottom.
Ah.
So water goes through it, it'll catch here and drain out the bottom, help keep the belt tube dry. So this one works really good, but it doesn't fit with everybody's hood scoop. A little modification to your stock cover on where those side guards are,
Yep.
and it will fit underneath the stock hood bonnet, but you do have to cut it a little. You don't have to worry about taking those air deflector and the debris deflectors off the side because the screen will take care of all that for you. So you can open that all up so it flows a little better as well.
Very nice.
We sell these for $59. They're on our website, and we have a couple of dealers with our products as well. So
That's a nice design.
Yeah.
So yeah, and we just 3D print these housings.
Very nice.
So let's see if I can do a little screen here. So we're kind of a 3D printing fools.
Very nice.
Oh, wow.
Oh my goodness. You got making money, man. Making money.
Yeah, let's see. I've got 11 3D printers. So some of them we just prototype parts for though. And then all 6 of these in this room are just to make the ProR parts. So,
Okay.
Then I have a big 3D printer in the shop that I can print 3 feet wide by 4 foot tall by 5 foot deep.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, I've printed a couple parts that took 57 rolls of filament to print.
Might as well 3D print a car there.
That's what I was just going to say. You might as well 3D print a ProR, Which that's the cool thing about the 3D printing is you get a chance to try to to try to create parts a little easier, as far as the machining process goes, and a lot cheaper, and when it comes to R&D, so.
Well, that's just it. Then that's what got us into the 3D printers is primarily for R&D. It's like
Yep.
like this the whole primary drive clutch overdrive system. That whole system I 3D printed for concept.
Yep.
And I actually got ballsy enough to try the part and run it.
That's funny.
Did it work?
It did actually run. I put about 100 miles on it.
Yeah.
I was afraid to go very far with it, I'll be honest. and I didn't do any two-step launches on it or any high RPM, but I don't do a lot of RPM launches anyways. I have my clutching set really, really tight, so my car starts moving at 1500 RPMs.
Yep.
I don't like to break parts, and I do like power, but I don't need the ProR is never going to wow me. It's never going to make enough power without breaking everything it has to be, to match an 1800 horsepower rail that I'm used to driving, so.
Yep.
But I do have my car to where I feel it's all the power the ProR can handle in the dirt. Like I can't go over 60% throttle until I'm above 70 miles an hour, or it just spins the tires.
Yeah.
So that's all I need. Now I can go into a corner at 65, 70, and if it's a little tight, I can just pedal it loose.
Mm-hmm.
And just get right around the corner. So it's pretty good. And I'm running pretty conservative. I'm between 5 and 6 psi boost, not a lot of boost. And like I say, I'm at 7,200 miles on that motor boosted now, and they've been pretty hard miles. See, and that 7,200 miles, how many mufflers have I done? I think I'm on muffler 6. They just get so red hot, they just disintegrate.
Yep.
Well, it's because you have so much power in there for that.
Yeah. Well,
no, I think at 9,100, I think it was like, I have to go back and look, but I think it was like 331 at the wheels. It's not a lot of power.
No.
Okay.
That's on 91 octane, though.
It means, so, it's all I can get out of it on 91. It's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
The power level I'm at right now, I'm between 28-31% detonation on full pull. And, as long as I stay under 35, I should be able to get 10K out of a motor.
Yep.
And I don't think this motor is going to make 10K. I think at 8,200 she's going to be done, because I think she's pretty much there already. But on the flip side, it's not 7,200 total miles on that motor. I think that motor's at 11,000 total miles. It's not the original motor to the car. The original motor, I killed. I done killed her. I built the original motor. It was an 11-to-1 motor, 2 millimeter bigger intake valves, standard exhaust valves, ported. It's got my own design intake manifold on it. That's another part I 3D printed on, is I 3D printed a prototype intake manifold and dynoed, and it worked out good. So then I just modified the stock one to match what we 3D printed. And that worked out pretty good. But 11-to-1 motor, it 5.5 pounds of boost, we'll call it, puts 331 to the wheels at 9,100. So I know there's a lot of people with way more power than that, but I don't think there's a lot of people that have run their car for 5 miles at 9,300 RPMs either.
No.
And does it day after day after day after day.
Yeah. But
now I'm to the point where I think I'm at 300 miles now, and I'm about just over half a quart of oil down. So I'm using every 500 to 600 miles, I'm killing a quart of oil.
Yeah.
So, and that's new. And each trip, the consumption is slightly improving. And the last 2 oil analysis, I'm seeing more heavy metal and more fuel particles in the oil, and my tune hasn't changed. So there's enough signs in the oil analysis to say that he's leaving.
Yep. Yep.
Well, at least you know it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
What's that?
at least you know that it's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You pay attention.
Yeah, that's the big thing is you're clearly paying attention.
Yeah.
So
But it seems like you built it right to last. I've seen other people try to do the internals, do everything out, and they get 50 to 100 miles on them and the motor goes out.
yeah.
They're not.
Well, I don't have enough time to work on my own car. So anything I do to it, it has to stay running.
Mm-hmm.
Because I would say my car goes out 3 days a week
Oh, wow.
on average. You know, it might just be a 40-minute ride in the afternoon, but it leaves at least 4 days a week. I mean, it's sitting on the ground right now, and I can just drive right out the door and go for a 35-mile ride.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody's like, in California? I'm like, yeah. So,
Oh, there's more to
I have to
California than town.
Yeah.
what's that?
There's more to California than just inside the town.
Right?
As we talked about earlier, we don't like being in town.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice, though, that I can sneak in the back way into town, and I have to do about a mile of blacktop in town to get to the gas station and out. And fortunately, you know, our local law enforcement, as long as you're being respectable, they just ignore the fact that you drove a half mile through town.
Right.
But, you know, I've watched the kids ride wheelies on the dirt bikes through towns, and they just laugh and shake their heads, too. So,
you got a good town.
Small town, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Gotta love the small
Try
town.
that in a small town. You know, I love that song.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think there's, I should know the answer to this, but I don't. But I think there's only about 6,500 people in Georgetown.
Oh.
That's about like our town I live in. We're about 4,500.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
We have one stop sign.
What's that song? Don't steal it.
Yep, exactly. So we have one gas station, one hotel and bar, a Chinese restaurant, a Mexican food restaurant, a couple of little knick-knack shops for the tourists, and there's a hotel. Let's see what else we got. Grocery store, hardware store. Oh, and there's a pizza place. Yeah, doesn't every town have a pizza place?
Yeah, you need a bar and a pizza place, and you're good.
And a post office. You have to have a post office.
In a church.
Yep.
Oh, and we had three churches, and a post office.
Yep. Yep. Too funny.
Yeah.
And the Rubicon is 18 plus miles up the road.
Oh, that's awesome. Yep.
So since you're familiar with Buckshot and you know the Buckshot sand cars, you know that Buckshot makes a really bitchin' set of trailing arms for the ProR, right?
No,
I did not.
No.
I had no idea. That's who's building your trailing arms that you were talking about?
That is correct.
Okay.
No.
So, yeah, the arms that I have on mine, they're just shy of 2 inches longer than stock. So it adds a little bit of wheelbase to the car, which the car drastically needed. It gets rid of the whole entire towing crap, all of it.
Really?
That aluminum innards, rotating drum, all of it. All of that just into the garbage can.
Huh.
So it's a hard face mounted. You take the factory bearing carrier out of that aluminum hub and you bolt it into his arm, and you put it back together.
No kidding.
And so it ends up being 21 pounds a side lighter than stock. with just absolutely bomb-proof arms. You know, they're I believe they're just 095 wall chromoly, but then it's got a 095 wall bash plate on the bottom of that 095 wall. So, you know, it's basically 200 wall, you know, on the bottom. And at KOH this year, I got hung up on a rock. So, and my only way out was just to wheelie it and then wheel tap it and just case a square edge granite rock with both arms right in the middle of them. Because I kept trying it a little harder, and finally I just I've already bent my lower radius rod, so I need to get over this because I can't get out my only way out, and I didn't have a winch, and I was there by myself. So it was like wheelie it and just, I really hammered them. I'm like, my stock arms on the Rubicon here, it's like every time I felt the arm touch, I went absolutely as tiptoe as humanly possible, and they still dented.
Yeah.
And like if you could feel it touch the arm, it left a mark. And
Mm-hmm.
if you got hung up on a rock and you backed up and tried to just nurse it like an extra 2 inches of bump, and it didn't make it, you came back, you had a half-inch dent in your trailing arm.
Yeah.
I was like, wow. And that Andrew and I did testing on the Rubicon. He had the arms and I didn't. Dude, I had to stack rocks like 7 times because I just kept hanging on the arm, and the approach angle of the stock arm was such a down angle.
Yeah.
He was trying to lift the car and drag it, and the metal's kind of soft, so that granite rock got a good bite into it, so it wouldn't slide on it. It was just stuck, and it was aggravating. And he'd just laugh at me, and he's like, so the last 2 times I hung up, he just nerfed me. He's like, I'm tired of helping you and stacking rocks, so he just runs into me. I'm like, dude, you could at least hit me on tire. Like, nope. Rick.
I'm just going to ram you up the hill.
Yeah.
But I square edged into that rock. I pretty much end it in rock mode.
Yep.
And wheelied into it and cracked it. And dude, there isn't even the remnants of a ding in them. I mean, it went all the way through the powder coat, and it's a pretty good scratch. But I mean, there's no marks of a dent whatsoever. So I'm just like, okay, these things are pretty tough.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, but you lost the toe link, so the toe's going to be all over the place. It's going to be batshit crazy. It's going to handle like shit. Nothing could be further from the truth. The car is more stable at speed than it ever dreamt of being with the stock toe link. And when I did slow motion video of the back tire, when we first were at Glamis, I did my car first, and this is a true story. I went down by the, not Sand Highway, but the trail that's down by the old canal in between, and it's a little bit bumpy. It's got whoops. They're not big whoops, but they're probably 18-inch whoops, and they got a pretty good spread in, just enough to get the car bucking back and forth. And when I came back and put the video card in my computer, my laptop in the motorhome, I hit pause. I went outside, grabbed my torque wrench, and I thought for sure that my wheel lug nuts were a quarter turn from falling off. The tire was moving around so bad, I honest to God thought my wheel was falling off. I thought I didn't tighten my wheels up.
Yeah.
And the lug nuts were tight. And I was just like, mother of God, that tire dances around so bad. That stock toe link is absolutely amazing on paper and dry cycle, but under load unload cycle, it is the most horrific system I've ever seen. The tire was moving over 4 inches of toe from loading to unloading. That's a 10-inch wheel on it with a 6.4 offset.
Okay.
And I was running that trip when we were doing that, I was running a really small paddle. I was just running those Tenzer sand tires on it. So it's a light, small paddle. It wasn't near enough tire for the car. Yeah, those tires didn't live very long. I think I only ran them one trip and I got rid of them. A high school buddy I went to, he's the sales and marketing guy for Tenzer, or Method, I should say. And he's been at Method for 20 years now. We went to high school together, and he's like, oh, no, these things are awesome. And they actually are really awesome on my X3, but they're not a good tire for the ProR. Not enough. I felt like my clutch was slipping all the time. I felt like, even in four-wheel drive. But anyways, 4 inches of tire deflection, by measuring it on the video and then putting a scale to it, the tire just uncontrolled toe change. And there's no, you can't say that, okay, when it hits the ground, it toes out, and airborne, it toes in. It gets such a harmonic going that there isn't even a uniformity to the dancing of the tire. It's just, if the car goes left, it toes there. If the car goes right, If it's doing this through the bumps and the tire, it's just all over the board. You can't say, okay, well, let's just pick a neutral toe zone because, under load it's going to suck in. And when it goes airborne, it's going to go toe out.
Yeah.
That wasn't the case. There was just no uniformity that I could find at all. And then I tried a couple of the bigger name, tow rod link arms that they say they stopped that. And, one of the more popular, more reputable, they actually reduced it by about 50%, but 50% of 4 inches is still 2 inches.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That can do a lot of damage to a rim.
Of uncontrolled toe is still 2 inches.
Yeah.
Well, Andrew's arms with, the full cycle, the toe changes, like 1.25 inches throughout the entire travel range.
Oh.
But it's the same every time.
Right. It's repeatable. Yeah.
Right. That you can watch the toe change as the tire cycles. If it's high in the stroke, it's towed in. If it's low in the stroke, it's towed out. And if it's all the way down in the stroke, it goes back to neutral. So, and then, so we looked at that, and I'm like, and Andrew's like, Tim, why is it that you're thinking of getting rid of your ProR? And I said, my number one reason that I don't like the ProR is this: when you loft a corner and there's a rise in the middle of a corner and you go off it, the car has so much dropout, and it gets the thing's 11 feet tall. Wheels on the ground on the top of the roof, it's damn near 11 feet tall.
Yeah.
Well, and it just felt like such an unstable. It made my trophy truck feel like a rally car.
Right.
And those are supposed to be the most roly-poly things on the planet, and I'm just like, this car is, it's 2350 something. I can't remember now. I'm just going to call it 2350 wet.
Okay.
Come 100% empty.
Yep.
I brought it home from the dealership. I filled it with fuel, glove box empty, every compartment empty, nothing in it anywhere. 2350 is what it weighs. So she's a chunky girl.
Mm-hmm.
And then by the time I added my front bumper, my lights, the seats, and a few tools, and a few other, I added 377 pounds to the car.
Yeah.
So now basically I'm 2,700 pounds, 11 feet tall.
Yeah.
Tipsy.
Wait a minute. So my best thing is it's like a 2,700 pound car shouldn't be running on 32s. It's just too small of a tire.
Right.
So, let's make the arms for 35s. So now we can get rid of 2 inches of dropout, add 1.5 inches of up travel, and now the car is only 10'7".
Yeah.
Yeah, because I run 35s on mine all the time.
Yeah, me too. And less paddles. I don't like the 35 paddles. I don't like the gearing.
I got the 33s for paddles.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm running the 32 Blackbirds in the rear, and I run the SS360s in the front.
Yep.
But I run the 3312 HPs up front, not the standard skinny fronts.
Okay.
And then I've got them trimmed, and you run them backward.
Okay.
So, and I'm supposed to be getting a new set of his 365s, but that, and I have a really intricate set of 32 Blackbird Pros that I run in the sand at Glamis. Those are what I run if I want to do wheelies. So, but if I'm not wanting to do wheelies, I run the SS360s. But if I run at my bigger power level, which we do a lot out there, I only get a weekend out of the rear tires, and they're gone.
Wow.
Of the SS360 HPs.
Wow.
So yeah, a 4-day weekend, and where all those Ys meet, they're just blown apart.
Yeah, that's weird.
So, but we log a lot of miles. I don't know if you've ever seen my map of Glamis or not.
No.
It's one color.
I took a picture of my screen on my ride command of Glamis, and from all the open borders and road to road, it's honestly, there's like 2 little spots that aren't solid blue. It looks like somebody spray painted. There is no trails. It just looks spray painted and then somebody scratched 2 little spots where I haven't been.
That's awesome.
You better cover those up now and get them.
Yeah.
Go out there and get them marked.
You know,
Yeah.
that's what somebody else said. And every time I go out there to do it, the dunes are so crappy. I'm like, this ain't worth a dotted line.
So is he selling those trail arms on there now? Has he got them out or no?
Yeah, he's had them out for over a year, but I love Andrew to death. But his ability to market a product is pathetic at best. I'm going to say pathetic. Poor guy. His sand cars have been such a legend, a name, and everybody. And he's like, how can somebody not know who I am? I'm like, you don't get it. Rock people don't know what buggies are.
No.
And 80% of the Midwest that does the rocky trails with side by sides, they know what a rock bouncer is, but they haven't a clue what a sand rail is.
Right.
And your sand rail is about as useful in the rocks as an elevator in an outhouse.
Yeah. Well, for the 2 or 3 people that have buckshots out here, what a 400-acre park is not really worth it.
Yeah.
Because you're like, zoop,
right,
and then you're done. The guys that do it, they just go down the drag strip wheeling.
Yeah, they never get out of second gear in our dunes, They just, yeah.
Well,
but I still want one.
Yeah.
I don't care. I will get it in third gear, dang it.
Well.
Oh, no, you'll get it in third gear anywhere. So it's getting out of third gear that's the problem. Because, all the ones with big power, first gear is you use to get it off the trailer or put it on the trailer. And then, so it's second, third. So it's just sequential to third. So you will get third.
Nice.
But fourth gear, you better have front brakes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Well, if you talk to him, tell him to send us a pair. We'll advertise for him like crazy out here.
Yeah, man. So I'm going to check those out as well. This has been an amazing podcast, honestly. I am super. I've been.
Do you want to do a podcast with Andrew?
I
would love to.
I don't know him, so if you would.
Yeah, I would love to.
Oh, he'd do it in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Actually, I was like, how could I just merge him right now?
Maybe, you know what we'll have to do? I'm going to this program I have, I'm kind of getting a little bit, but we'll have to do another one with him and you.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, that would be.
I'll get him on in a second.
Nice.
He's pretty easygoing like that. A lot of people think he's real arrogant, but he isn't as arrogant as people think. He's just a little standoffish, and it comes off as arrogance.
Sure.
It's like anybody that's been, somewhere in somewhat of a limelight. You get poked and prodded at times. You just tend to, turn your head the other way, and people call it arrogance, and you're just like, you just want to be you for a while.
Sure, absolutely.
So, and he's got a little bit of that, and he's like, I don't understand, Tim, how you've been able to stay so incognito your whole life. And it's like, stay away from the camera, you stay out of the limelight.
Yep.
It's pretty simple,
Yep.
And it wasn't until this hood scoop, and because my car, I write it off, so it's got my logo on the side of it.
I do the same thing.
I'm sorry?
I do the same thing. I own a fitness center, so this Fusion Off-Road is after my Fusion Fitness, which this is a advertising logo.
So, yeah, excuse me 1 second.
Yep.
Yeah, and I went up to Dune Fest, and we went for a ride, and we pop out in the middle of somewhere, and there's this little hamburger stand, and walking up to get the hamburger, and somebody said, "Are you Tim?" I'm like, who's asking? You're not supposed to know who I am. And like, I saw the logo on your car. It's like, oh shit. Well, let's cat out of the bag in the side-by-side world. So.
Oh, nice.
Well, the thing is, if they're great products like that, I mean, the only reason I was looking for a hood scoop, something different, and I seen the logo and I seen the design of it, I was like, that just looks cool. And then it was like, wait, this has more than just looks?
Yep. Yeah, clearly.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, you have definitely done your
I
research.
Actually, I should have taken more pictures of the original one I did, but I hacked it all up and I didn't get any pictures. But the first generation one I built was the one that I thought looked really bitchin'. I mean, I was like, aesthetically, it was, yeah, people are going to buy that.
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't freaking work. And by the time I was like, okay, well, it's real flush. It's got a real bitchin' base plate, and got all these cool, and it just looked awesome.
Yeah.
And for the life of me, I couldn't make it work. And it's like, what? Who cares what it looks like if it doesn't work? There's
Right.
plenty of hood scoops that look bitchin' on the market. I need it to do my job here. So, and this is the third revision of it, as far as of that style. I did 3 different styles and tested all 3 of them, and that's kind of why we ended up with so many terabytes of data. And I'm a data whore. Sorry, I just have to admit it. I've been doing data logging. I got my first data logger that would log all channels back in the mid 80s. I've got an old ACR data logger that it's just a little box. When we do the next podcast, I'll bring it out and show it to you. And the thing still works. And it's supposed to have a 6-year battery, and it's at like 27 years.
Oh, wow.
And it still works, but it does, all 5-volt channels. So it can matter, do quite a few different parameters. It's got an old AV jack to download it. And that's the problem now, is it doesn't even have a USB drive on the back. It's an AV to an RS-232.
Oh, wow.
So I got to keep this old resurrected laptop so I can use some of this old equipment that I have. Like I have that Stalker Stats radar gun, and it's the same thing. It uses that RS-232 jack. And I still use that Stalker Stats system today. It's proven itself a million times over. It's really accurate. And it's better than setting up lights to do a drag race. You can just use the Stalker Stats gun, and it'll give you your acceleration rate and everything. So it's kind of nice, and it's portable and easy. So yeah, nice. But the data just never lies. So I just kept doing data and running. And my wife's like, "Are we ever going to drive this car with all these freaking wires everywhere?" Because it was pretty much in there for about a year. We're at Glamis, they come over and like, "Dude, what the hell is going on in this car right here? But there are all these freaking wires everywhere, So, and because I would just keep the data loggers in the cup holders and just press go and drive, and then find out if there was anything that I missed. So
nice.
So yeah, that's what we've been doing. So. And so what about you guys? What all do you guys do?
We do just a lot of videos. Most of us going to Silver Lake and other places. We started getting into more reviews and stuff like that.
Yep. Reviewing off-road parks, instructional videos, this podcast, promoting businesses and other people in the industry. Yeah. Pretty much just anything to do with off-road. We don't just deal with side-by-sides. We talk to guys with trucks and rails and
monster trucks.
Yep, quads, bikes. Anything off-road. And that's kind of what Fusion is about.
It's combining.
Yep, is the combination of all of the facets of the off-road industry.
So do you guys do a fair bit of the rock bouncer stuff out there, or like 4400 stuff? Or?
No, there's not a lot of that in Michigan. It's a lot of trails and other stuff. If we do, we go down south.
You guys are in Michigan and not Wisconsin, so I thought you were further west. So, or further east. So
no, we go from here down to. We're going to go to Oklahoma. We went down to Arkansas. We're gonna the machine, the blue one, and his. He has an orange one. We're going to put them in the expos this year, so they'll be sitting in front of there.
Okay.
We'll be at the Arizona one. We'll be at the OPE with the guys from the Mud Madness TV series.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah, that's what we're working on now. Is we're getting out there a lot more.
Yeah.
So everything we put on
Are
these,
you going to go to any of the UTV takeover events?
just depends on our schedule or not.
I want to get to a takeover event. Absolutely. I don't know if we're going to be able to fit it this year.
Yeah.
I mean,
We're hosting the for the Michigan Mud Jam, which is the biggest mud jam like the Northeast, all the way down to hit south like where
Florida. Yeah.
Yeah, this
Texas.
this is the third biggest one in the United States. We're hosting all the
Oh, wow.
we're hosting all
The side by
the side by side stuff, the side by side short course, the mud course, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So that's why we went back down south to meet the Whiskey Biz and the Larry Dreadbone and all those guys.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So, yeah,
Because, I think the Hurricane Utah one is in October.
I think you're right. It is in October. It's typically it is late season, October, November area or time. Yeah.
yeah. Well, we want to go to Utah. That's one of our lists.
Yeah, it is.
I flew out there and rented a machine last time.
Because I went out there last year for that event, and I liked that event. There was a good mix of everything going on. They did that little short course race that's kind of fun, a wheelie contest, the drag strip, but there's not much for sand dunes there. But the rock crawling and trails are, there's some legit gnarly shit there around.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There's some guys that got some serious talent, on wheel placement. I was impressed at what some of these guys, you look at their side by side and it's kind of a morphodided thing, it's like there's no body panels on it whatsoever, and it's got a basic cage on it, their tires, they got every penny of tread out of them, last year.
Yeah.
They're still on there, but man, they were getting down,
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
I was impressed. I was like, I watched a lot of competitive rock crawling stuff, and the guys in the little single seat cars, and what a couple of these guys were doing with two wheel steer, side by sides. I was like, kudos to you guys, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, go for it. And I'm like, no, that's above my pay grade right there. There's only two things going to happen if I put my car in there.
Yep. Exactly.
I'm going to get butt hurt, and my car's going to get jacked up.
Exactly. Yep. That's we have a couple of friends they live in the mountains. That's what they do.
They're always broke though.
Yeah. That's Wreck It Ron.
Yeah. Some of these guys
we call him Wreck It Ron. We can never go trail riding with him without recovering him off the side of a mountain somewhere.
5 miles is going to take you an hour or two.
Yep. He's that guy there. We'll be driving along, we'll be going along, and he'll be going, I'm confident I can get up to the top of that right there.
That what's called Widowmaker? Only one person? I got it.
Yeah.
No.
Right.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, well, if you guys ever want to do the Rubicon, I've got spare benders right here, and it's 18 miles up the road.
I would love to do the Rubicon. Yeah.
Yeah, we got to get out that way. That's probably going to be a next year. We got to get a 50-foot trailer so we can get like 5 machines on there.
Yeah.
And then tow the other enclosed trailer so we can.
Yeah, we definitely need to be able to take a big group out there. That's for sure.
Well, you guys could just jump on a plane and come out, and Andrew always comes up here buckshot. He comes up here. He loves the Rubicon. We did it last year, and he's been bugging me all year. And I'm like, no, Andrew, it's June. Remember, you can't get on it until June. He's like, why? And he said, well, because it just snowed last week.
Yeah.
And he's like, really? And I'm like, no, seriously, we just got 11 inches last week. So you're not going to get through the Rubicon when there's snow on it. I don't care who you are.
No.
So he's been bugging me to come back up. But yeah, every time we go, I've got an empty seat and he's got an empty seat.
Oh.
So you could come up and learn what it's about, and then you could, bring your 50-foot out and your group out, and then you guys could be your own tour guides.
Yeah, I get scared riding with people sometimes.
That would be cool.
You wouldn't get scared riding with me in the Rubicon because I'm a pussy.
Yeah, nice.
So if we get on the fire roads here and on the logging roads, now I might pucker you, but on the rocks, yeah, just put your beer in your hand and relax because I don't like banging my car up, so I tiptoe.
Unless somebody runs into you and pushes you up it.
No, well, only when I hang up on rocks, but I haven't been hung up yet since I got his arms on there a year ago. So it's been good. So
nice.
And and maybe we can talk him. I've got a spare set here that I had on my car, and I didn't want to take them off to get them powder coated, so I got another set from him and powder coated them. So I've got a non-powder coated set sitting here.
Nice. Very nice.
Yeah, we'll have to talk to him on the podcast, see if he's interested in it.
Yeah. I would definitely come out and ride shotgun with you, Tim. If somebody can blow a CV boot continuously, I'm gonna ride with that man. I'm sorry.
He rides with me in races, so he'll be okay.
Yeah, I'm good with that. Yeah, my wife, when me and Jason got together and she saw what we're starting to do, she raised my life insurance policy. So she's all set, man. We got nothing to worry about. Matter of fact, she endorses this type of behavior now.
Yeah. Oh, that's how we met at the dunes, and I rolled it up a hill. Yeah. And then he goes, "Oh, that's a good guy."
Yeah. Yeah, that was the day that I met Jason. He rolled up a hill. I come home and I told my wife, I says, honey, I think I just met my new best friend.
Yeah, I've got a couple friends I've watched roll uphill, and he's entertaining. So
to say the least.
Andrew's entertaining. Andrew drives pretty well though. So and he's not just there's a lot of people that are good in like one discipline or another, but Andrew's got a pretty diversified. He's pretty good in the rocks, and I think he should race KOH. I really do. I think he could do really well there, but I just don't think he has a budget for it anymore. Those big cars don't sell like they used to.
Yeah. Wow.
And he only builds a few a year now, and COVID made parts so hard to get. It really put a squeeze on those guys pretty hard. So
yeah.
I think he builds 2 or 3 cars a year now, but that's all the speed they got with the crew that he's got going, and his facility not big enough to go any bigger than that. But
he builds the best, that's for sure.
Well, and I told him, you need to build these arms, you need to build stuff. And if he'd have got out sooner, I don't think he was quite fast enough, and then he was way too quiet. He didn't put them on his website, and still doesn't have them on his website, and it's too bad because all of the cool little designs that he's got in the arms solve a lot of problems with the ProR, and the biggest problem that I like is I don't run rear mud flaps anymore.
Right.
Or wrist guards. He made provisions for it, and he made some really nice brackets to put the stock ones on there, but I have not had to put them back. I took them off for the rocks, and I forgot to put them on my first desert ride. Well, shoot, my inside rear wheels look better than they ever did stock. And I have no new scratches in my wheels whatsoever. He did a real nice job of building an angle so when the dirt comes off the arm, it evacuates it out of the wheel.
Okay.
Or instead of trying to, the stock arm pushes the rocks and the pebble into the arm.
Oh, yeah.
And his pull them out. And even in the mud, I noticed if you get in mud in there, it pulls the mud out. And I'm like, so you got a win-win situation with that design. And then the way he did the bottom of the arm, there is zero from the pivot point on the frame all the way to the tire. It's dead flat. The bottom of the train now. So there's zero. Like there's a couple other brands that, like, it runs flat, and then 4/6 in front of the tire, it's got a real sharp down angle on it.
Yep.
And his are absolutely positively digressive to the tire from the pivot point. So they glide over the top of rocks really, really well.
Sure.
And it's darn near impossible to get hung up on them.
Wow. Yeah, we got to check.
They did a good job.
Yeah, and we do a lot of rock climbing down in West Virginia if we're down in there,
Yeah.
or if we're in Tennessee or Kentucky because we go there.
Yeah.
It's only like 8 hours from our house.
Right. That's why I thought maybe you did some of the rock bouncing stuff because I knew it was pretty close by.
No,
Not terribly.
we'll
Right,
climb
so-
up them in the races and stuff. We'll race through them. Like
Yeah.
they'll do
Right.
the enduro races. We'll go through the sections and just kind of pop them up and throw them up.
Oh,
But
Yeah.
you're bouncing off rocks. You're scraping them. Yeah, you're hitting everything.
Pretty much.
My,
Yeah.
my race machine, we've broken a lot of trail arms just smacking them on there.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, like I said, we got to definitely check that out.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, that's what we do. We do a lot of, like for us, we do hang out with a lot of the other YouTubers, and then we just go out and we talk about different things. If it's a good product, everybody starts pushing it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, for sure.
We're the only ones doing the podcast, but it's because it's a newer thing. People don't want to get into it. It's a lot of work, or like this. Even like this, we spent 15 grand setting this room up.
Yeah.
So I believe it. I've seen, what some of the, I look at what I've got in just, data recording equipment. It hurts.
Yes, it does.
Shoot, 3D printers.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I have a system that where you pull the spark plugs out and it's under the plug detonation sensors.
Okay.
And for a 4-cylinder engine, that system's 28 grand.
Yeah. Not cheap.
And it's just a detonation sensor. And, I look at all the data loggers I have for doing all the data I record, and, I have close to 300 grand in data logging equipment.
Yeah.
And some of it's, 15, 18 years old. But it still goes and works fine. Like the underplug detonation sensors I've had since, I think, 96 or 97.
Wow.
Imagine what they cost
it was
now.
like, I think it was like $19,000 when I bought it in 97. It was like, it hurt.
Yeah, for sure.
So, but now they're like $28,000 for that new system. But it's the only way to get a true detonation number.
Yeah.
The block sensors work good once they're programmed, but the problem I find is as soon as you change the pistons in the motor, your detonation sensor is done. It doesn't work anymore, and people don't realize that.
Huh.
And they're like, "Well, what do you mean it doesn't work?" And I'm like, "If you change the piston design and you change the metallurgy of the piston, you change the resonance of the knock, the sensor doesn't hear it anymore.
Right.
It's programmed to hear a certain tone." And if you ever get into the Motec, you'll see that you've got multiple frequencies and you can ignore and acknowledge different frequencies, but until you know what true detonation is, you don't know what frequency to look for.
Right.
And that's something I haven't been able to do with the HP tuners is, I can't do anything with, detonation sensor frequency. I can find the detonation with my under the plug det sensors. I can get a percentage of detonation, but I really got to get it to 65 or 70% knock to even find it on the stock det sensor. And most of the time, the stock det sensor won't hear it until it's at 80. Well, it takes 82% detonation to be audible to the human ear. So you don't even hear detonation until you're at 82%. But motor damage starts happening at 30, 31%.
Right.
So if you stay below 30%, you'll get a pretty good life out of your motor. This is something that I don't see anybody in the UTV world tuner doing. Nobody. I've talked to quite a few of them, and that nobody is looking at reprogramming det sensors and to the motor that they built. They'll put CP pistons in it, or they'll put BC pistons in it, they'll put BC rods in it, and they'll put all these aftermarket parts in it, and the det sensor is still programmed to all OEM pieces at OEM RPM. So even if you keep all the original same engine parts, if the motor's factory design is 8100 and you make changes to turn at 8,500, if it starts detonating at 8,500, there's a very strong chance that that detonation frequency is outside of the programmed of the OE dead sensor.
Sure.
So it's not going to hear it properly anymore, if at all. And that's why you see so many of these boosted ProRs going down with relatively low boost numbers and super low miles. Because they say, oh, well, it runs fine. Well, how do you know?
Yeah.
Right.
Did you put a det sensor on that motor that guarantees that you hear detonation? Or are you just going off what the stock det sensor is telling you? Because I can tell you right now that with the stock piston, stock rods, my head's been modified, but it's all stock metallurgy, right? All the same parts are the same.
Yeah.
But my RPM is outside the factory window at 8,800. And no matter how I log with the HP tuners, I cannot see detonation that my under the plug sensors are picking up at 55%. And I haven't detonated any harder than that because I just don't want to. I might do it when I'm like, okay, I'm going to rebuild the motor now. So let's see where we can do a crossover and see if I can't. But there's really no reason to do it right now because I can't go in and change the frequencies with HP tuner anyways. So I can figure it out, but I can't figure out how to fix the problem. So there's no way to fix that as of right now.
So,
yeah, that's
so when everybody asks me on the forums and stuff all the time, they're like, what's max boost on a stock motor? 5 to 6 pounds. And they're like, oh, you're crazy. You can go more than that. And my answer to you is you show me one tuner, one builder, one supplier of turbos, one person, just one person that's been doing it, that's got an 8 PSI boosted motor that has 5,000 plus miles on it, and that motor tear down, and they've got an oil analysis report from zero that, at 500 mile intervals, 25-hour intervals, 50-hour intervals, whatever interval, let's just say 50-hour interval oil analysis reports, and everything written down on paper to show that this motor can truly live 5,000 miles at 8 pounds of boost. You show me someone who's did that, and I'll say that it's safe.
Yep.
But I can tell you right now that there isn't one person in this country that's doing it.
Yeah.
So anybody that tells you that 8 PSI is safe is full of shit.
Right.
Well, people tell you whatever you want to hear.
Yeah.
If they're selling stuff.
It's not just people, and I even had a little discussion with some people that have pretty big names, and one of them was even on your podcast recently, and they're not doing det sensors either, and
no.
Even in some of the other aftermarket tuners, I see no knock sensor relocation. I see no knock sensor tuning. I don't see it, but I see motors going down everywhere.
Yep.
And I don't know. I guess I've just always, worked in. I shouldn't say always, but I spent the last couple of decades in arenas where when motors go down, people die. So, or get into a bad predicament. You can't lose a motor in an airplane.
No.
Why not?
They just have a habit of falling out of the sky.
Yeah. Airplanes are better than helicopters, though.
Not a lot.
Yeah, well, it depends on the airplane, though. But yeah, well, when you're talking a speed plane, yeah, there's not much lift there on those wings. They need that speed.
So. But I know a few F4 pilots that would say that the helicopter's got a better glide rate.
Yeah.
They usually just fall straight down.
Those F4s had the glide rate of a brick.
Yeah.
So at least you can auto gyrate a helicopter. Did you see that power out on that? There's a really good YouTube video of a power out helicopter ride in Kauai. I think it was Kauai on the north side of Kauai. They were flying along the coast over the water, doing the waterfalls, and they did a bank turn and total engine failure. And he auto rotated that thing down onto a little tiny beach and landed it. Everybody 100% good.
Huh. Wow.
And didn't destroy the aircraft. I mean, I think it looked like maybe one of the legs on the landing gear was a little bit bent, but it was a pretty. He could not do a proper glide rate to keep auto gyration going and make the beach. So, it's all cliff on that side. So I mean, he didn't have much of. He had a postage stamp in the middle of an ocean. I'd say a needle in a haystack actually probably a better thing. And he made it happen without any injuries, and was impressive.
Yeah, that's impressive. Yeah. Well, and to get it to auto rotate, you pretty much have to drop it like a brick until the last second, though. You don't want to burn that head speed off. You got to save what you've got until the very end, So,
but he had to do a 180 turn from facing, ocean bound to shore bound, and do the auto gyration going in a 180 turn and bring it up onto a beach that was probably. I'm going to guess 35 feet wide, 100 feet long.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, wonder if he had practice.
With a sheer cliff wall right behind it,
Yeah, he should. Yeah, I don't know if he could do it again. I guarantee he probably wouldn't want to. In fact, I don't know if I'd ever get back in a helicopter again. So,
they say sometimes it's better to be lucky than good.
But. Yeah, that's a fact. Yep.
Everything was aligned for him that day. Somebody on that plane made somebody happy not long ago, and they got rewarded for it.
Yeah.
Yep.
That was pretty impressive. So.
That is impressive.
Nice. And I know some pretty good pilots. A couple of these bush plane guys that I do spell drag planes for. There's a guy in Boise, Idaho, by the name of Toby Ashley, and that dude can fly. Like. They're your kind of people. I mean, probably shouldn't have said his last name, but
we can cut it out.
Gauge shotgun with a 25 round mag mounted to his landing on a carbon cub, and he coyote hunted. And with two of us in the plane, me in the back seat, him flying, he got 3 for 5 coyotes. Was 7 or 8 shots, and all he had was crap ammo. It was like birdshot, and off that gun.
Whoa!
A
carbon cub's an awesome plane though too. That's...
and and I don't know, it's probably a few weeks before I was out there, I was working on his race plane, and he sent me pictures of his windshield covered in blood. And I'm like, oh, and, he had the coyotes all hanging from the wing struts. Mm-hmm. And I thought that, he just got a little ambitious flinging one up there and flinging the blood all over the plane. Come to find out, he was so low shooting that the thing jumped up and he prop struck it.
Oh.
So that's what all the blood on the windshield was from. So, yeah. But I was flying with him, and I think he doesn't have the plane anymore, but he had a Beaver.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar with the Beaver airplane or not.
Oh yeah. Yep. That's usually a float plane.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So we flew from Idaho down into Oregon, and we had breakfast, and then we took off from a little dirt runway, and we were going back to Idaho, and we were about 1,800 feet off the deck, headed to a mountain that was probably 1,200 feet. So we only had 500-600 feet between us and the ground. And fuel gauge read that there was fuel in the tank, and the fuel burn rate computer started going ballistic, and then the plane shut down. And I mean, like a Timex watch, turned the plane into the valley towards the lake, because the lake had it was down a little bit, so it had a little bit of open shore, so you knew it was a relatively flat landing spot, which bought us about 1,100 feet of distance off the ground. And then went after, okay, we've flown the plane, we've got a little time, now let's figure out what's wrong with the plane. Oh, look at that. Let's try to fit some fuel You hit the primer. Let's prime it. Let's see if the radio will go. Boom, fires up. Get some more altitude. Done deal. Like nothing happened. You know, but I mean,
Yeah.
the guy was just like this. Like it was just an exercise to him, you know? Like, yeah, that's how you do it. And like he was giving me instruction lessons, and we were 15,000 feet and we had all the time in the world, you know? It's zero panic in every motion he did. But I mean, it's just like boom, boom, boom. His wife was in the back seat, and it was just like clockwork. And I'm like, okay, now this is a guy you want to fly with in the bush.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't just fly good. He has adversity. He has great crisis management.
Nice.
Well,
So yeah, it's been nice to work with some of those airplane guys, because there's some of them that are pretty fun to be around, you know.
About.
Yeah.
So they're a little bit more fun than some of these off-road guys.
Especially those Michigan ones. I've heard all sorts of stories about those Michigan off-roaders.
Yeah. A lot of weird things happen.
Yeah.
Now, I was thinking more of like the desert racers from like the southern hemisphere area, you know, especially SoCal area. There's a lot of desert people out there that they know it all. Just ask them.
Yeah, the sun. It's all from the sun.
Yeah. I learn new things every day.
Yep. Yeah.
Me too. And
I've learned
but my
a
problem
lot.
now is I'm only learning one new thing a day, and I'm forgetting 4 things.
Yeah.
What were we talking about?
Exactly.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
No, like I said, this podcast has been a great learning experience for me.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, it's been awesome. It really has.
Yeah, we definitely got to get you back on with him. So text him, tell him you want to send us the mold parts. We're going to advertise for him.
Yeah, tell him for sure. He definitely needs to update his website, because I mean, if he's making a product that is half as superior as what you're claiming, Tim, we should be helping him push that thing. I mean, we had 50 guys with ProRs that need those arms on them, you know. So yeah, we definitely need to get a chance to talk to that guy, and again, that's what we do. You know, what you've done for us is pretty special. We typically don't ask for a thing. We just try to help people in the industry and push. You know, it's a family thing. So that's what it's all about. And yeah, we'd love a chance to talk to the man.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I come from a little bit different mold, I think, because I've been in this sport, you know, of off-road racing for such a long time, and you know, I've seen the highest of highs and the lowest of lows, and you know, to be fortunate enough to be a part of, you know, a couple of OE factory race teams, you know, like I've got some pretty neat old, you know, Nissan race trucks, and you know, to be able to cut my teeth, you know, in the off-road racing world in a 7 truck, and then, you know, get moved to a 7 Unlimited truck under factory support. You know, you learn a lot about, you know, racing, and, you know, to be, you know, exposed to some guys that, you know, winning is everything. It's been, you know, I've had a pretty amazing journey of a life, I think, you know.
Yeah.
And it started from high school, you know. I worked for a guy that owned a machine shop, and, you know, to me, he was just a one-eyed machinist in the middle of the desert in Southern California that, you know, it was, I don't know, probably 1,200 square foot machine shop, little tiny place. But he machined all the brake rotors and calipers and hubs and everything for Willwood. So we made all the Willwood stuff, and I'd be in there. Well, you know, after punching holes, and that's what I started doing there, just drilling holes, and had a drill fixture and 3 drill rigs, and just punch holes all day long.
Yep.
After school. And, you know, come to find out that he was one of the main engineers for Milodon.
Oh, wow.
You know, and he was one of the 3 dead-end kids. And he built a 980-pound top-fuel dragster in the early 60s. Oh. And I shouldn't use the word he, I should use the word they. That was the Dead End Kids project. But a sub 1,000 pound top fuel dragster in the 60s. I mean, I don't remember what their weights were, but it was like 700 pounds lighter than the next lightest car.
Oh.
And it was so light that they were able to run an injected, and keep in mind that had a cast iron Hemi in it.
Yeah.
I think they're like 5 something just the motor, right?
Yeah.
So to be sub 1,000 pounds with a 500 plus pound motor is, a pretty crazy feat in the 60s. So he taught me how to build stuff really light. It's like, when you build something light, this is how you do it. So when I built my first sand drag car, it rolled across the scales at 648 pounds, and it was a Corvair powered sand rail, 131-inch wheelbase.
Wow.
Fully suspended. And and for about 9 years I held the suspended sand drag record at Glamis. It was pretty awesome. And I built that car myself at 17 years old.
Wow.
Nice.
So, but it wasn't without his tutelage. It was what I learned from him as a young man, that taught me how to do what I became to do today. It's like trial and error. Those guys came from that old. They didn't have data back then. It's like data was like, you tested it, broke. You looked for why, you put it back together. Shoot, didn't work again. Try again. Just that kind of era. And like when I first, I built this really intricate intake manifold system to equalize the flow on a twin turbo Corvair, and I was having pressure drop issues, and one cylinder kept blowing a head gasket, and I was like, why does one cylinder get more pressure than all the rest of them? I didn't have data sensors. I didn't know. So I said, fuck it. I'm going to put 3 turbos on. You can't keep a head gasket with 2. Put 3 on it. So I did a tri-turbo and 1 turbo on the top. And I said, if I blow down the middle of it, it's going to pressure everything equal. That should solve the problem. Well, it did. Didn't have one more single head gasket problem after that. I had all 6 head gasket problems. So I kept pulling the studs out of the cases, and I'm like, I can't put a bigger stud in it. And he goes, you have too big of a stud in it. I'm like, what? How can you have too big of a stud if it's pulling out? He goes, you need a smaller stud with a bigger thread. I'm like, okay, step stud. So okay, we did step stud, and he's right, it did better. And then I turned the boost up, and I was right back to the game. Well, now you needed what you call a girdle kit.
I stopped wearing those.
Like a bra for my mom,
Yep.
And he's like, no, look, girdle kit. And I'm like, well, I can't do that because like the valve covers are just stamped metal. He goes, well, make some valve covers, you dumbass. And I'm like, well, that's a big chunk of metal. And he goes, yeah, it'll take you a few hours. So I had machine shop in high school, and I machined the valve covers out of billet. Made billet 1/2-inch thick valve covers for my Corvair dune buggy in high school machine shop.
Just so you could girdle it.
Yep.
I love
and then
it.
I had 3/4-inch stainless all thread, and and 4 of them going across. So I actually externally girdled and held that motor together, so I could actually run it up to 35 pounds of boost with no internal HUD studs left in the motor, all externally done.
Wow.
And so then I was like, well, if I put internal and external, maybe I can go to 60 pounds. And the head gasket held at 60 pounds of boost, but now the cylinders blew out.
Yep.
And since they were air cooled, they didn't just blow, oblong. They
blew it out.
Flying. So,
Yeah.
So I found the limit in my Corvair, but I never dynoed it, but I did run a 298 at 121 miles an hour with a fully suspended dune car.
In 300
17
feet.
years old.
And that's in 300 feet.
Yeah.
That's incredible. That is
and
fast.
Yeah.
And I drove my buggy from Gecko, which is the east side or the west side of the dunes, all the way to the drag strip at the store at the east side of the dunes, because I could.
Wow.
I drew it over there, and then my dad and uncle came over because they came out to Glamis that weekend too, and it was actually my uncle that said, you know what? I gave him a ride in it up the hill, and he said, yeah, you need to take this thing to the drags. I think you do really well. Having no idea it would be that fast at all. I mean, I'd never done any sanctioned racing at all. I built it for fun. I wanted something, and I just kept going and going and going. And, Dave, the guy I worked for, he was, so instrumental in helping me do so many things, and, he educated me on how to use Hinderly injectors with Hillborn's system to get a cleaner running car. And he's like, I ain't doing nothing for you, but I'll show you. This is how this works. This is how that works. And I do that. Good luck, kid.
Yep.
Don't let the door kick you on the way out. So,
Yep.
and I know the first time that he saw it run, he came up and he's like, I never ever thought that car would be anything that impressive. I knew you were, you had some intelligence, but I figured you just break it and break it and break it and give up and go away. And transmissions were a big problem, and I couldn't get anywhere there until I saved some pennies for B&J, and then I finally solved that training problem. But and then I could put more power to it, then I had another problem, how it goes. And
one to another.
I just was never happy. And then, but I did the drag race and just kind of whacked everybody out and caught him a lot of really big name. I just remember going up against a car named Pinto Bean, right? It's a rigid, full-on drag car, and put him on the trailer in 2 straight. And the owner of it comes up and he's asking my dad a bunch of questions, and my dad looks at him and says, I haven't got a clue. You have to ask the kid. And he goes, are you telling me that the kid's buggy? And it's like, yep. And they just treated me like I was like this rich snot-nosed punk,
Yep.
like, yeah, daddy's money. And my dad's like, I have not a clue. I haven't got 10 cents in that car. Well, actually, I think he had $100 in it. They got me something for Christmas. I can't remember what it was now. I think they bought me. Oh yeah, actually, my older brother, my mom and dad all got together for Christmas, and they did buy me a set of rear paddles.
Oh, nice.
So I got a set of paddles for Christmas on like my 17th birthday too. I think it was a combination because my birthday's in December. I think it was a combination Christmas birthday present from everybody. Was a new set of paddles. Because I needed bigger tires than what I was running, and I couldn't afford them.
Nice.
So, but yeah, the guy was just butthurt that Pinto Bean's driving. It's just like, yeah, nobody runs sub 3 seconds, ever.
No.
So it was kind of nice, and I think that record's going to forever hold because the drag ship's gone. So it's going to be hard to beat if you can't run, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So it left a little piece of legend there.
Nice.
But yeah, I duned that car, and I drove around in the dunes and raced it up the hill, and then it ended its life on Competition Hill before they closed it down. I crashed it on Competition Hill, racing a guy by the name of Vobel George. We both got a little loose and came together and split back tires and rolled in one direction, and I rolled in the other. So we both spit out like boogers.
Oh man.
Yeah, it's opposite directions. Tumbled, and both being aluminum cars, they didn't survive it very well.
No.
We all walked away pretty unscathed, but I never did build that car back. I gave up on it.
Only took a major crash. Oh.
I was just at the point where the Corvair was at the end of its limit, and it was getting hard to find parts for, and they were expensive to find parts for, and I wanted to do something different, so I built a new car with an Acura in it.
Nice.
So, but the Acura never went faster on flat ground than the Corvair car, even though it had a lot more power. That that something about that flat six being that low in the car and being mounted so low, that car was able to drive forward without lifting the wheels better than any other car I ever built. So it just, I don't know, maybe it was just better lucky than good, you know?
Yeah.
Oh.
Wow.
But it drove straight. I mean, you know, to go sub 3 without a wheelie bar and not have a wheelie problem, you know?
That's impressive. Yeah.
Yeah, most of them you gotta do something different.
Yeah. Anything sub 3 is got a wheelie bar, and I mean, it's top fuel. I mean, that's all raked out, and yeah.
Yeah. So, and only 133-inch wheelbase. So
Yeah, that's
and
incredible.
I did it more than once, so it wasn't a timing and fluke era. So, you know,
Yeah.
I backed it up with 3 passes that were all within a hundredth. So,
Yeah.
and a mile an hour, all within all of them were 121 and change. So 3 runs, 121 change. So it wasn't just fast; it was consistent.
Yeah. Wow.
But I'm going to say that I owe Dave for all of that, because he said there's only one way to go fast down a straight line. That's to have everything mounted to the floor of the car.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, when you're 17, it's like, what do you know? But
Yeah.
you know, those dragsters, you know, when they sat in the back, they had wheelie problems once they got tires. You know, and it's like, no, the lower you get everything, the more chances of the tires keeping it pushing forward versus climbing the ring gear. And I'm like, okay, well, that makes sense. You know, if you push it under the ring gear or the axle line, then it has to lift twice the weight of something above the axle line. Okay, I can see that logic.
Yeah.
You know, 100 pounds up there above the axle line pushing to go over 100 pounds down there, you got to get past the pendulum line.
Yep.
So it wants to drive it forward. Okay, that makes sense. So when I had Mazone built the chassis for me, and I had him, when it came off where the rear treadings are, drop it down another 2 inches so the bottom of the car was a little lower, so I could mount the fuel tank and everything even lower than stock. So,
Nice.
and you know, the turbos were mounted to the bottom, even the big tri-turbo, all mounted to the bottom of the car as close as you could without the exhaust dragging, and then ducted it up to the intake. So I even took the alternator off the top of the motor and put it all the way down at the bottom and reversed it backwards so it would be, you know, in front of the motor instead of mounted towards the motor, and get more CG to the middle. So, and then I had a 2-inch spacer plate between the transmission and the engine to move the whole motor 2 inches further forward as well.
No kidding.
Yeah, so I spent a lot of time on that car making it go, but I think the V6 Acura, just the center line was too high, and it would, I think 321 is the best it ever did, and it had like 400 more horsepower.
Huh. Still, 321 is moving. That's moving.
So, and it would only, I don't think you could do a 3.6 in that car without a bar.
Wow.
So the Corvair just went. I mean, it was crazy. So, but it'd only make 10 passes before that power level before it hurt itself.
Yeah.
And that's why I wanted to get, and that's why once I rolled it, I'm like, you know, I could turn it down, you know, take 10 pounds of boost out of it, and it would live most of the season, you know, but I guess I just got burned out on it, but didn't realize how good it was until it was gone.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Sounds like a country song, right?
Yeah. You wrote 3 of them so far today.
Yeah.
Well, we don't want to hold you up too much longer here.
Oh, you know, whatever you guys want. I'm good. Dinner time will be here soon, Mom. I just hear Mama cracking downstairs now. So.
Nice.
Well, yeah.
Nice.
Well, we'll have to get you back on. I'll probably edit this one and get it out on hopefully Monday.
Oh, we're gonna
wait.
put this one out that quick?
No, I'm not. It will not be on Monday.
Yeah.
Because
Monday's a holiday, man.
I know.
Yeah.
So if you put it out on Monday, I'm gonna have to smack you myself.
It's gonna be because this one's like 2 hours and 42 minutes.
Oh
yeah.
wow!
So it's gonna take me 5 hours to edit it.
Yeah. He'll shrink it down to
like an hour and a half or so.
Yeah. We'll get it shrunk down. course, there's a couple of things you asked to get taken out, so
Yeah.
we'll make sure we take those out. So
Yeah. Yeah, I'll try to get the shop cleaned up on one so you can see some of the stuff there. And, you know, I wish that, you know, some of these guys would not think their stuff so. I'm just going to leave it there.
Yeah, I'm with you. So, that was a great podcast, guys.
yeah,
We learned a lot. I mean, I learned even more about planes and the motors in planes and a lot of different things.
you found out I knew what a beaver was, didn't you?
No, he didn't.
Yeah.
So we might be having some more podcasts with Tim and a couple other guys.
Yes.
But thank you, Tim, so much for being here. We appreciate it.
Yeah. I can't wait to get that scoop on the machine and check it out. Yep.
But we'll see you guys in the next one.
Thanks, guys.